Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Friday's stream. Thea, congrats on getting first. Today was scheduled to be Slay the Princess. However, the devs have delayed the publishing of that game, which is... I get it why they did it. And I would rather play a full-fledged out game and thought out and make sure that everything is great and perfect and how it should be than play an unfinished game without the little details and traits that the devs wanted. So I think... Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that next week I don't know a schedule yet because there's some things happening next week. But I'll definitely play the game next week because it is coming on the 23rd, which is Monday. However, I am not sure if I can stream on Monday. So please, if you haven't joined the Discord or follow me on Twitter, definitely do if you want updates on when I'm playing Slay the Princess. Because now that they delayed the launch day, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play on the launch day. So I just want to let you guys know that, so there's no surprises. But today's a Friday, so happy Friday, everyone. How are we all feeling? Today at work was fine, not a lot going on, but you know, we had a good day at work. But yesterday, I actually got my upper teeth braces. I have braces now, so if you do notice change in my speech, that's why. I can definitely feel the change in my speech. I don't know if you can hear it, but there is definitely a change here, so please bear with me while I get accustomed to having braces now. I still look very cool, by the way, like, come on, so don't worry about that. And having braces is okay as an adult because I went on Google today to like better know how to care for my braces, like how to properly clean it and everything. And most of the websites that I found were like, oh, make sure your child holds a toothbrush like this, ensure that your child uses this product, like your child. Hey, I am the child here. Who are we talking to right now? I am the one who has braces. I am an adult and I have braces. There is no child involved. Brett, welcome to the stream. Welcome. How are we doing today? How are we doing? I was just explaining that I put braces in my upper teeth yesterday, so I'm still getting accustomed to that. If there is a change in my speech, do bear with me during this tough time. It's not being easy. What's going on with a child? Exactly. I was saying, because this morning I went on Google to like how to properly clean with braces, like what to eat and what to avoid eating, and like, oh, make sure your child holds the toothbrush, ensure that your child doesn't eat these, like your child must be... What child? What child? I'm looking this shit for me. There is no child. I am an adult with braces. Is that not a thing anymore? Like, adults can have braces, so I don't know. This is not sexism, this is not racism. I don't know what the name is. Like, I am an adult with braces. No candy, popcorn, taffy. Honestly, what I'm most bummed about is like not having cereal, because I like having cereal and cookies. Those are gonna be my downfall. I love cereals and cookies. I can't really have like those hard potato chips, like the ones that come from the bag, like crisps. Like that, it's not either. And like since I put my braces on yesterday, it's still very sore. So like I've been eating sausages with very overcooked pasta because that's the only thing that goes. Like yesterday and today, that's it. And today I ate a little cake, you know, Kinder Delis. And even the little like hard chocolate cover from the Kinder Delis, it's still my teeth, you know, it's still So definitely got to be patient these days. Definitely. How am I supposed to send you butterscotch chocolate cookies now? Brett, I don't know. I am very stressed. Listen, I have to wear these braces for 30 months. I'm gonna have oatmeal. I'm gonna have pasta. I'm gonna have... The fuck am I gonna have? What else? Sausages. I'm gonna have cake. Yeah, it's gonna be a long 2 years plus. So whatever changes you hear in speech, get used to them, baby. Also, hi Elder, welcome to the stream. And as of right now, I put the upper ones yesterday. In November, I'm getting my bottom braces as well. So that's surely gonna be fun because I've heard, I mean, I saw on Google that the bottom ones hurt more. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm not really excited. That will be a hell of an adventure. That will be a hell of an era. It's gonna be 2 years plus. So please accompany me on this journey because God knows I cannot do it alone. Lend me your strength. Actually, I still haven't asked what you guys had for dinner. I already said I had sausages and pasta. But what did you guys had for dinner? And I also want to know, have any of you had braces before? So I just want to get to know other people's statements on how their experience with braces was. Because I did have braces before, but because I didn't have the correct treatment, because apparently I found out that my ex-dentist that I went to when I was a teenager didn't really care. So I got my teeth done all wrong. I should have gotten braces on my upper and bottom teeth, and I only got the upper, so it did fix my upper teeth, but because I didn't fix my bottom teeth, everything just went back to place. So I'm having to repeat the treatment, basically. So I've had the experience of having braces before, but because it was not done well at all, I don't remember ever feeling this sore. It was really not done properly, and I didn't get any friendly advice or anything. The dentist didn't tell me that I couldn't eat hard things. I didn't feel all this wire back then when I was a teenager. So I truly think that my ex-dentist didn't really give a fuck and just took advantage of my parents' money. Because now 10 years later, I'm redoing everything. So my review is I've had braces before, but this is the first time I'm actually experiencing properly what it is to have braces. I didn't have any of this back then. Brett had burger and chips, delicious. You fucks didn't want to spend the money. That's honestly so valid. It's I don't want to say it's posh or anything, but spending money on health and doctors and dentists and everything is not a thing that is a lot of people's priority, because a lot of people's priority is having a place to sleep or something to eat. And I totally understand that. And I'm now only doing this like to myself, I'm doing this treatment because now, because I work, I'm spending my own money in this. So I definitely understand. Elder had two Francisingers. Did you go out to eat, you little rascal? That's delicious. You know my teeth, they're all fucked up. Listen, if my problem with my teeth was aesthetic, I wouldn't give a shit. But and you know how dentists, like, you usually go for a consultation and they always try to like sell you things. Dentists usually try to sell you braces, right? That is a common thing. I don't know if it is like a thing they try to sell to everyone, even to people who don't need it. But I really do feel like I didn't need it, because I did ask, like, listen, this is my first consultation. I know that my front teeth are crooked, but if it is only a matter of aesthetic, I do not mind it. And she just said, Tronam, the aesthetic will be a consequence. Like, you have teeth that are not hitting the other teeth, and later in life there will be a problem. And that sounds like a very big problem, because again, I've had to fix a shit ton of cavities when I was a child, and now my teeth are not good. I've had to do root canals. So I truly do believe that putting this money that I am putting on my teeth with braces, I do feel like it's going to be worth it. And I feel like I do need this for my health as well. But because my front teeth, like my two front teeth, you know, the big ones, like the bunny ones, they were going forward. And it was my bottom teeth that was like, my bottom jaw was like pushing my teeth forward. So actually, when I open my jaw, I can't open it a lot because my jaw has closed a little bit. My mouth is not big because I can't open my jaw a lot because my teeth have moved. So I really do believe that braces were the right thing. Honestly. And maybe, hey, listen, maybe it'll fix a little bit of my jawline or like something like that. I really hope so, because I do feel like that my jaw is smaller than it was before because my bottom teeth are pushing in and my jaw is smaller. So that's fun. I'm just telling you guys about my dentist history right now. But yes, other than the pain, I did take a painkiller in the afternoon because it was getting a little bit too much. But other than that, it's doable. I know I'll get used to this. The worst part about this right now, you could say, oh, it's the pain. The pain we can manage, always. But it's not being able to eat cereals and cookies. That killed me today. Listen, I'll make it through this. And Brett said that they can stick around, and I appreciate all the help and support, everybody, because I'll need it. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. It's not fun. I love cereal. But it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna have so much oatmeal, guys. I'm gonna have so much oatmeal. And Weetabix. Delicious. Also, we have this thing. Hold on. I'm gonna show you something. I also have this. I don't know what to name this in English. They're like little flakes. Let me see if I can find it zoomed in. It looks like fish food, I'm not gonna lie. It looks like pieces of fish food, but they're like honey and chocolate and everything. And it's actually really good. Like, you see the little flakes in there? I don't know what to call that, but it is pretty good, and I also am eating that a lot these days. And like this with Weetabix mixed in, it's delicious. Because if you just buy Weetabix by itself, it's actually pretty plain and like doesn't taste like anything. So it's not good by itself, but I mix it with this honey thing, and it's actually so delicious. So if you haven't tried that, if you can get some of these, do that, because it's really good. Anyway, I've been rambling now for a while. I did have, again, today was meant to be Slay the Princess, but they delayed the launch day. Totally understandable. A little bummed out about it. But there are more visual novels that we can explore today. And that's what I decided. We are going to be playing Lachesis or Atropos, if that's how it's called. I'm so sorry. Let me stop the music. Which is, I have the thing here. This world is woven of strings of fate and hate. What do you see, detective? A horror mystery yuri visual novel peering into the maddening darkness of love and death. And that sounded pretty interesting to me. And going to the theme of Wednesday, this is a free visual novel that you can play if you like it. So if you want to get different endings or anything else, it is free on Steam if you would like to play it yourself. So let's see what this is all about, shall we? Let me just, I'm gonna do that and do this and do that. There you go. Looks good. Thank you. I've been researching what games to play today, and I thought that was, oh my god, what did I do? And I thought that was interesting. So I hope you'll have a good time with me here today. I did take a screenshot of this trigger warning and I put it down there. So in case you don't like the things that are on the screen right now, or these things trigger you, I totally understand if you'd like to step away from the stream right now and just watch another day. There will be more content, more other games that I'll play. So your safety comes first. So if you need to leave, now would be the time. I love you so much and please stay safe. Now, monsters in Spooky Month? I know, it's crazy, right? This is the opening screen, and listen, the music is really good. I like it. I haven't unlocked anything. I have no extras. Do tell me if the game audio is good. I can turn it down or up if need to be. I have image captions and sound captions. I don't know what self-voicing is, or I don't know what clipboard voicing is. I'm gonna click that, so we'll see. We have this. I'm gonna put it full screen for me. Oh no, I can't see my mouse. My mouse, I can see it on OBS, but not here. Okay, cool. Oh, actually, I'm not gonna put it full screen because it's not working anymore. Okay, this way it's working. Cozy music? Yeah. So is the game audio good enough? Do tell me, do tell me. I upped my microphone a little bit. Is that okay with everyone? I'm gonna click start. I sat on the train, squished between throngs of people in the middle of the day. Shades of thin black lingered between the passengers, walking through the low hum of the engine and the whir of closing doors. I watched. My mismatched blue and golden eyes, wary with the bags underneath, followed their every move. People of various forms whose path might only intersect once with mine here at this moment. I gazed at them and the secrets of their hearts. He hated her. She hated him. They were hated by someone beyond this enclosure, lightly with apathy, darkly with furor. The former gray most called dislike. My hair was short and black with mismatched side bangs, my skin pale. I tied some of my hair into a braid around the back of my head. I wore a brown jacket that reached my thighs and a brown dark dress shirt that was tucked into my brown slacks. Affixed to my jacket lapel were 2 golden rectangular clips, and to my shirt collar a golden pentagram clip. Black sneakers and red stud earrings completed my look. White bandages were wrapped around my neck and my left hand. Does I look nice? Oh, hi Kamita, welcome, welcome. How are you doing? What you had for dinner? I had an advantage over the typical people watching enthusiast. Professional career choices aside, I was born with eyes that saw strings. Visible lines ran between their bodies as they began to bicker softly, hurrying away. These were strings of black, strings of hate, a convenient tool that only I seemed to see. Not red nor blue, nor fate nor death. I saw a color that reflected no light. Was I mad? Perhaps innocently insane. Reality had many times corroborated my eyes' expectations, empirical evidence toward the black strings of hatred. A light sigh escaped my lips. Relief. Rice noodles with shrimp? Oh my god, that sounds delicious. That's very good. Everyone was as usual. Those who hated strongly had strings. Those who hated rarely had strings. Humans were creatures of emotion. As the train started to move, my luggage shook lightly in the overhead, and the scenery through the windows blurred. A stranger sat in the seat across from me. She gave me a cordial smile. You there with the mismatched eyes? I don't recognize your face. Travelers are rare at this time of year. I politely returned the smile. Are you a local? Most folks on the train are from around these parts, but you seem new. This was the countryside. Not so rural that the trains were devoid of people, but close enough that I spotted a number of rice paddies in the blur of scenery. I was going to a town, small and a little remote, but of great importance, yet another transfer away. I had never visited this place before. Maybe the stranger would have recognized my mentor, Shoko, the reason I was on this train. I'm visiting from city, Tato, specifically. What leads you here? What do you do? I'm a private investigator, a freelance job, although I often work on cases with law enforcement. Just the usual matters, not much to talk about. The usual matters. Murders, kidnapping, grudges with bloody outcomes. They were difficult to talk about in public. I specialized. Is there a case you're investigating all the way out here? I shook my head. No, there was no such case, at least not officially. Just vacation. You have to take them when you get them. It's a bit harder to choose the right time when self-employed as a detective, but personal matters came up, so I had to take time off work. Yes, things happen. You chose a good place to visit. There are lots of tourist spots in the area, even if it's off-season, and the hot springs are quite nice. Right? I wish I could stay longer. My schedule is up to me, but the wallet not so much. The stranger gave me a commiserating look. Incidentally, you're from the area, right? I have a friend who asked me to send her regrets to the Mikami family. Do you happen to know anything about them? Friendly conversation loosened lips. Mikami? Ah, the wealthy family from the next town over. They used to be very involved with local affairs, but I'm not too familiar with them. Eccentric, but well-liked seems to be the general consensus. Eccentric, but well-liked. How eccentric? eccentric, and why well liked. I transitioned to the topic away from the Mikami family while thinking about my hidden intents for the strip. Mikami Itoha. I wanted to find a missing person for my mentor, Shoko. Shoko was dead, so only I was left to fulfill her last wishes. I thought I should do it before I find myself dismembered in a ditch. That and I really did need a vacation. The stranger and I made a little more small talk before the rumbling of the train slowed and came to a stop. An announcement played over the intercom. Passengers stirred, moving to wait before the still closed door and get their items. I checked the station signs and my notes on where to transfer. This is my stop. Slipping a business card out of my pocket, I passed it to the stranger, who received it with both hands. That means she respects the woman. I mostly do business in the city, but if you have anything you'd prefer a private investigator for, please do send my office a call. Have a good vacation. Thank you. Even the stranger had strings. Without speaking a word, I wondered who she hated and who hated her. I doubted we would meet again. I rose to my feet, ignoring my sore knees, and dragged my luggage out from the overhead bin. I still couldn't get used to being so tired. My heart raced in my marred chest for a little box with some clothes and a laptop inside. I checked my breathing, keeping as steady as I could. That woman is going to die? That seemed like a possibility. Seeing the door still open, I alighted the train with no one behind me. I hurried through the station to catch another train, barely passing through the doors on time. I quietly thanked the inventor of luggage with wheels. Amen. After a peaceful but rather empty ride, I waited at the station until a local taxi arrived. Ooh, beautiful. With another uneventful ride spent looking at the scenery and sky, I reached my inn. It was a typical traditional Japanese inn with gable roofing with light coral tiled and shoji. A rock path led to the entrance, the front yard surrounding it a beautiful garden. Paying the taxi driver, I stepped out of the car and took in a deep breath of fresh air. I was winded. Due to an unfortunate series of events, I spent too long in the hospital this past years. Some of it not even conscious. I like to think that I put back on some muscle with physical therapy, but miracles were called miracles for a reason, and here I was. I had booked a pricey room with its own private hot springs at this Japanese-style inn, knowing soaking in a public one would be difficult regardless of other guests. But I got prepped for my stream, trying to beat a Half-Life today. Good luck. Good luck to you too. Thank you so much for stopping in. I really do appreciate it. Have a great stream, Brett. Mwah. Good Friday, by the way. I entered the building. The entryway was elegant and well kept. A bonsai tree and an earthenware pot decorating an alcove by the genkan. The daylight softly shined through the washi paper. The innkeeper greeted me with only one thin gray string. She was surely a well-liked person. She wore a kimono and had her hair up in a bun. I have a booking for Shirasagi Mana. You're right on time. Let me help you in and get you to your room. We filled out a paper at the front desk, making idle talk about my trip here. Then she led me through the hallways of the inn to a spacious tatami-floored room where I would be staying for the duration of my visit. A short-legged wooden table surrounded by green-blue floor cushions sat in the center of the main section. The shoji opened to reveal the backyard, filled with lovely, well-kept plants. Helping me set my luggage down, the innkeeper showed me around the room and the location of the private hot spring. Shoko recommended this inn to me. She mentioned that she worked here for a few years when she was younger. We were co-workers in Teito. A melancholy look flickered across her face. Of course, the person we were talking about had passed away. I'm happy she remembered this place even after moving to the big city. Did she ever mention our hot springs' therapeutic properties? Oh? The water comes natural from the mountains, you see. That's why folks say our hot springs can heal aches. I hope you'll enjoy it, especially as you're booked a private hot spring. There's still ample time before dinner is prepared if you'd like to explore the town or have a soak. That's certainly in the plans. Dinner was at 6. I had booked a special meal for my first night. Looking at the analog clock on the wall, I found a bit over 2 hours to kill. Before I forget, Shoko also mentioned, from my jacket's inner pocket I retrieved an old photo dated to over a decade ago. In it were 2 young women, one familiar, Shoko, another unfamiliar. Mikami Itoha. I showed the innkeeper the photo. The second person was Mikami Itoha, the missing woman. She had disappeared in this town, much to Shoko's despair. Shoko was more than a co-worker, more than a mentor, but a dear friend. She was the one whose little grey cells I trusted to share in the piecing together of gruesome and sometimes not so gruesome puzzles. On her deathbed, she lamented her inability to find Mikami Itoha, and I had consoled her, giving it up as an impossible case to solve, just like many other disappearances. Yet, after towing the bank of the Sanju River, I had a feeling that I should at least try to fulfill that wish of my friend. A visit, a vacation, but in the place where Mikami Itoha had once been, I concluded that I would do an investigation under another guise. At the very least, I'd find a few hints, puzzle pieces to lay on her grave so she could put it together if I couldn't. So, regarding this Mikami Itoha, is she still in town? I'm afraid she passed away a while back. Mikami Itoha was dead. I inadvertently tilted my head. I thought she was a missing person. Her family members held the funeral privately, but the rain was so heavy that day that I still remember vividly. She's buried in the town cemetery, if you'd like to pay respect. Thank you for letting me know. You're welcome. Please call the front desk if you need anything. With a bow, she returned to her other work. I unpacked my essentials. Surveying the room, I decided to go explore the town and enjoy the hot springs in the evening. Was Mikami Itoha dead? I entered the town and found myself at a path with an entrance to a park nearby. Everything was very sparse and simplistic, and the wilderness was very close by. I pulled up a map on my phone to check the locations in town, waiting for the bars of cellular data to show connection. As soon as it loaded, I began to walk in the direction of the cemetery. The air was cool, not too cold yet, but not too hot. Oh, hello. Deep in empty thoughts, I tripped into a human figure and nearly stumbled into her arms as I righted myself clumsily. Sorry. It's okay. I was speechless. The person that stood before me smiled gently. Mikami Itoha. A girl who looked the same as Mikami Itoha. With different clothes and longer hair and a blindfold over her eyes, but before me was a girl who looked otherwise identical to the photo of Mikami Itoha, not one day older. She had pale skin and wore a red dress with a white collar and black ribbon. Over that, she wore a brown jacket with an off-white lapel and white crisscross string motifs. Her legs were covered with black tights, and her brown lace-up boots reached her knees. Her smile grew. Nice to meet you, detective. You know me? A sickly detective coming to enjoy the hot springs, a tourist in the off-season. You're not that hard to recognize as a visitor, I don't think. News spread fast in small towns. Perhaps that was true, but I couldn't see her eyes behind the cloth. You might call them rumors. Not completely untrue rumors. I am a private investigator staying at an inn with hot springs. As for the sickly descriptor, I'm not sure about that one. Then that's all the better, isn't it, Miss Healthy Detective? Speaking with a bright lilt in her voice, the girl before me made expressions quite unlike the still face in Shoko's photograph. How surreal. The same face could convey such different emotions. As I observed her, she made a motion to leave. When I stopped her with my words, she turned around in surprise. Can I ask you a question? Ooh, we get choices. Oh, hydrate. Thank you so much. A person who looks similar to you. I think it would be rude to just come up to a person like, ah, you look like this one person that I know. Like, who the fuck are you talking to, honey? So there is a person that looks similar to you. Do you happen to have a relative who looks extremely similar to you? She smiled. Is this how city people flirt? Ah. Relatives, particularly close blood relatives, most of them looked similar in one way or another. If I so don't particularly mind, although we've only just met, I'm flattered. The next words she murmured quietly. She appeared deep in thought. I wonder if you've met my sister. Unlikely. She made a smile of certainty. Taking a thinking pose, she nimbly twirled around on the even ground and faced me with a shake of her head, as if coming to a conclusion. The blindfolded girl grinned. You're very pretty, detective. Don't get caught up in trouble, okay? Thank you. I had to apologize to her as I was sure to get into some trouble. Even I preferred not to, but trouble came naturally when snooping around. Oh my word, it's a Friday. Oh my god, it's Cherry. Hi, how you doing? How's life been, Cherry? You do have to share what did you snack on or what did you have dinner before coming to the stream. You know the rules. I don't make the rules. But it's lovely to see you here today. How are you doing? Still, warm pink crawled up my ears at this girl. She was pretty. Before I could continue to converse with her, a voice from the distance called out. Priestess, I barely made out that word. Someone was calling for her, so she once more made the motion to leave. See you around, detective. See you around. With a delicate wave of her hand, she turned away and left. I returned to my walk with more questions than before. I realized I hadn't asked for her name, nor did she mine. Oh, I love women. I have been so weepy, but I got some fish and potatoes for dinner. That's delicious, Cherry. Do please take the time to rest. And if you fall asleep, it's because you need it. Mwah. Oh my goodness.
Cherry Bumble just joined the hideout. Women less than 3.
Women more than 3. I love women. Very based opinion. Thank you so much for the resub, by the way, Cherry. I really do appreciate it. Mwah. Next, I walked into a woman of indistinguishable age. She had pale skin, long white hair, tied into a high ponytail, and red eyes that gazed calmly at me. Her bangs were swept over her left eye, and on her left ear was an earring with a white crystal at the end. She wore a loose-fitting dark purple howdy over a long purple shirt, both bordered with gold, her pants the same color as the shirt. The collar of a black undershirt went up to her neck. Around her left hand was a silver bracelet and a black fingerless glove. Perhaps visitors stood out more than I thought. I apologize for disturbing you on your walk. I wanted to welcome you to town. She smiled faintly. Please call me Keeper. Nice to meet you. I'll be in the care of the townspeople during my trip, so I should apologize for troubling everyone by visiting outside of tourist season instead. No, we merely do as we should. She gazed at me softly. I hope you'll enjoy the visit. We continued bowing back and forth in a polite exchange. Before I knew it, a tension I hadn't yet recognized dissolved in my chest. I'm not aware of the duration of your stay, but our local annual ceremonial dance is occurring in 1 week. She smiled with slightly more excitement than usual. God, she's so pretty. I would love it if you get a chance to see the thread-cutting sword dance. An autumn festival dance? She returned to a stiff and cordial expression. The date is defined at the start of the year, so the season varies. We can never know what the gods want to see and when. This year is autumn. Maybe it's fate you came here now. Fate was a strange word. There existed numerous myths and fictions about the red string of fate. What I saw was the black strings of hate, so I always questioned what form fate would take. Was it a string as well? I believed in fate. Oh, I finished a cool essay earlier too. Oh my god, can you share? Can you share what the essay was about? I'm curious now. Double checking my in-booking duration in my head, I found that I would stay long enough to view the dance. Then I noticed Keeper making a slight glance at my eyes. She narrowed them curiously. One was blue, one was gold. Heterochromia in its rarity couldn't help but be eye-catching. In fact, she was polite enough to not comment. Oh my god, she has homophobia in her eyes. However, the moment her gaze slipped across the golden eye, I realized she had no strings. Was she hated by no one? Did she hate no one as well? Hate was a strong word. People who didn't have black strings, thin or dark, light or heavy, existed. They were only, in my opinion, rarer than the two colored eyes. A buzzing noise chirped in my ears. I hesitate. I blinked. I blinked again. Before me, she was still human. With my mind popping back to reality, I realized that I hadn't heard the last minute's conversation at all, but now she looked to me for a response. Bro, same. What was the question again? Yes. I looked toward Keeper, wondering what she would take it as. She grinned. There's a gathering this evening as well. We must have been talking about another sort of event. She took out a note card and pen, jotting down something in immaculate handwriting while holding the stiff paper atop her palm. Here are the address and directions to the shrine. Thank you. I took the paper with both hands, read it over, and tucked it away in my pocket. She had even written down the time information. In this day and age, most seem to visit shrines or temples for holidays or vacations, keeping an altar at home if relevant, but not thinking too much about practices. I also did that. I prefer it that way. Perhaps this was some sort of pre-ceremony gathering, or perhaps the local religion was one with such popularity amongst the townspeople that frequent gatherings could happen. I completely had not been listening. I'll come visit. Places with many people were convenient for work. Then we'll see you this evening. Another exchange of slight bows later, we parted ways. Ooh. Step, step, step. Passing through an inconspicuous pair of gates, I reached the cemetery. It was clearly built on a hill with concrete stairs, with metal railing leading up its 3 tiers along the now angular slope. An old large tree hung over the stairs and covered them with shade. Tombstones covered the ground with familiar tall rectangular blocks. Most were family graves, the surnames of lineages etched into stone. Beneath the ground were the deceased's cremated ashes. For better or for worse, coffin-style burials were rare in this country. Of course, I wasn't an autopsy doctor, and my particular form of science needed not a whole lot, but a whole body. Thread-like gray strings floated in my vision, indicating to me deaths in a particular family in the last century. Grudges to and from the dead faded over time. They faded slower, much slower, than the body rotted. I eyed the names on the stones, searching for Mikami. Her Mikami was spelled out with 3 and God, not a particularly difficult pair of characters to read. Oh, it's this one then. Mikami. But these surnames are different. Oh no, this Mikami family, and surely that's some names. Before long, I reached a slightly more extravagant section, if a cemetery could be called extravagant. There, the Mikami family grave stood before me. Around it were an array of individual graves, some with plots large enough to fit a body and coffin under. These too were marked Mikami with the addition of personal names. I didn't know quite how expensive this was, but I doubted I would ask my estate for such a thing. Even having my ashes buried could cost not worth spending. I quickly found Mikami Itoha's grave. Mikami Itoha. Ooh, it was about gender and autonomy, just some college stuff where we analyzed some journals and then linked it to a poem. Pretty fine to write, honestly. Pretty fun, honestly. That sounds so cool. I'm glad you were. Oh, can I speak? No, I cannot. I'm glad you had fun writing that essay, Cherry. It really does sound very cool. There you go. If I say slow enough, I can process my thoughts into speech. If I try to do it fast, the words don't come out. So we got to take our time, people. We got to take our time. Okay. It had a stone with her name, a plot large enough for a body, and no strings thin or thick, even though she purposely died within the last decade. Pure-hearted humans were rare. Those people who didn't hate and weren't hated, they basically didn't exist. Meeting one was more than enough for a day. Was Mikami Itoha such a person as well? Then again, the grave could be empty. Are you here right now? The grave did not respond. Well, I sure fucking hope it doesn't. Oh my god. We've never met before, but you should remember Shoko. She remembered you. I was her protege and partner. Shoko cared about you. I'm sure if you're not down there getting reincarnated with her, she's still worrying about you. I placed my hands together, giving a short prayer to pay respects. Shoko could have been wrong. Mikami Itoha could truly be dead. The line between missing and dead was often not a line at all. My mentor was a stubborn woman. That she liked her conspiracy theories didn't give me confidence. Regardless, I'll tell her what I find about you. The grave did not respond. I pulled out my phone to check the time. I could return to the inn or stick around a little bit longer. Ooh, let's linger. Given that I had taken a walk here already, I decided to linger for a few minutes more. I walked past Mikami Itoha's tombstone and took a look at those of others from the Mikami family, taking notes of dates inscribed on the stones. There was only one buried per generation. Perhaps the Mikami family used a criteria to decide who received their own plots. For example, only the eldest could have a special grave. Perhaps they simply had a thin bloodline, their name passed down painstakingly by each singular hair. Ooh, there's the woman! I passed through the Mikami section and spotted a familiar figure from afar. The priestess? Although a townsperson had called her that, the title didn't seem fitting. As she was in the distance, I didn't bother to call out to her. The shout across the cemetery, now I wouldn't be as ghost to do that. I had enough time with the dead today. I departed from the cemetery. Returning to the inn, I passed through the front and greeted the innkeeper before going to my room. The red glow of the afternoon painting the room in orange hues. Dinner was sumptuous. Beef, probably more expensive than the entire meat budget for 2 months, melted on my tongue. Apparently the cuts came from local cows. I went out for a walk to digest afterwards. Checking the card the woman called Keeper gave me, I started toward the gathering. I walked and climbed up a flight of stairs, eventually coming to the stated location. It was a small, humble shrine with somewhat spacious grounds with a usual shimenawa festooned with shide hanging above the entrance. Sorry, I don't know if that's shide or shide. Shimenawa. I don't know what festoon is, but we're out here vibing. Also, this background music, very cool. Dark forest surrounded it. The lack of light pollution allowed the night stars to blanket the sky above. Ooh, sure beats the other essay I had. A lot of the dense politic history to wade through. Still pass it though. Hey, that's Cherry. Congratulations. And you know why you passed? Because you're so cool, Cherry. You're actually the coolest. And Brett, thank you so much for the luck. I hope... Oh my god. I can only speak to read the visual novel, please. Oh, okay. I do hope you have a cool stream. Thank you again for coming by and showing your support. Whenever I have to talk to chat, I really need to speak slowly, because if I just try to speak, the words will jumble. But I'm actually reading the visual novel pretty good, like pretty well. So I don't know why I can't speak with you guys today. Everything was going so well and now it's just blah blah blah. But we will make it. We will make it. And I feel like going to this shrine is when things are gonna start getting fucky. So let's see. I just realized that chat is being hidden. Oh no. I'm so sorry. Chat was being hidden. I didn't mean that. I am so sorry. Let me just do that. There you go. That fixes it. There's the trigger warnings. Okay. The grounds weren't very well kept. Nature was spilling into the cracks between the stone walkway. A small crowd was already present. I had arrived late. I rubbed my eyes. Was I tired from traveling? Oh my god, more beautiful women! At the front stood a girl whose face looked again like Mikami Ito has. She did not wear a blindfold. Like the other girls, she had pale skin and long black hair that reached her thighs. She wore a blue jacket with white lapels over a light teal v-neck t-shirt. White pants and white sneakers. A brave girl. I could never wear white pants. I would be too scared. Around her neck was a necklace with a green stone, and on her left wrist, a nice watch. Before her sat a townsperson. She moved her hands in a series of motions, as if cutting an invisible something. The townsperson made an expression of gratitude. The girl. Another of that face. Oh, but golden eyes. Maybe she sees strings too. She had golden eyes. I couldn't help but notice the shining color that was the same as my left eye. Another term for eyes of this color was fairy eyes. They weren't just fairy eyes, she had pretty eyes, striking even from a distance. At the front, she cut and finished. The people made a short prayer that I watched silently without participating in. The quiet, formal part of the event ended and the townspeople around me started setting up an after-party, bringing out snacks and drinks. Like bees to honey, a whirlwind of people greeted me. Kind faces asked curious questions about the big city and how I had been liking the town so far, recommending their shops and other locations. Stumbling over my responses like a newborn fawn over its legs, I was instantly defeated. Eventually, I got a chance to ask my own question. Who was the girl in the front? She's one of our priestesses. Did Keeper mention the upcoming ceremony? That lass is really good at getting guests to come. Our priestesses will also be performing the thread-cutting sword dance. Last year's was with 2 girls. This year is going to be only 1. Makes me wonder how they'll change it. 2? Yes, our other priestesses can't perform the ceremony anymore, so this year's has only 1 dancer. They're both good girls. Don't forget, you old codger, to start with before we had 2 priestesses, the sword dance was always a 1-person ceremony. Chatting with the townspeople felt like chatting with grandparents. I made the analogy but never actually knew my grandparents on either side. With the country generally aging and the trend of younger people moving to the city to find employment, I wasn't surprised to see an older population in this small town. That was also why she stood out. Oh, she's back. I spotted the priestess not too far away. Her expression was serious. The conversation shifted and I whipped through the people around me toward her. However, the priestess was gone by the time I got free. Walking around the perimeter of the people chatting, I looked for her. The music got louder. I don't know if that's good enough for you guys. I'll just put it down a little bit. Then I spotted a door and paused. Before me was an open door leading to a dark flight of stairs, too deep for me to see the end. No one was looking my way, so my heart swelled with audacious curiosity. Oh, I'm gonna sneak in. The door was open, no one was watching. Ooh. I could just go in, and through the door I went, hurrying down the first steps so as not to be noticed. I squinted in the dim lighting and placed my hands against the cold walls. Lights lining through the rough stone wall barely lit up the spiraling staircase. All the stairs, including the banister, were all built from wood. I walked down the stairs 1 step at a time, surveying my narrow surroundings. Down, down, down. No matter how many steps I walked, no end seemed to be in sight. I wondered how many stories deep the stairs sank. My knees began to ache. At the first steps, I had slowed to a normally pleasant pace, but my lungs still burned for rest, chest throbbing with scar tissue. I think we can continue. I think we're gonna be so strong about this. I continued walking. Down, down, down. After endless steps, I reached flat ground, nearly tripping as I tried to go down once more. I passed through the section of darkness, eyes adjusting as I walked, before reaching a cramped room with a difficult-to-make-out door at the other end. In the room sat a glass coffin. This was the third time I saw this face today. Within the coffin was a woman, sleeping or perhaps already dead, intact without a single sign of rot. Mikami Itoha. I approached for a closer look and suddenly my field of view toppled over, legs giving out. I tried to right myself up again with trembling arms against the freezing glass. Drip, drip. Gasping through the increasing pain, I saw a sword pierced through my chest. I tried to turn around only for my assailant to kick harshly against my back, forcing me against the coffin to wrench their blade out. My vision flickered, spotting with darkness. I couldn't make out the reflection of whoever was behind me in the glass of Mikami Itoha's coffin. Instead, dark red from my body marred the barrier protecting her. Twice in less than 2 years. I couldn't handle it. Being stabbed like this again. All turned to black. Okay, I've reached dead end number 1. That was my achievement. Interesting. Interesting. I think I'm gonna skip until we're at the end of the ceremony. Skip. Skip. I want to put the same things, but maybe not. I'm not gonna sneak in the shrine. I'm not. I'm gonna put the same things, but I'm not going to sneak in now. Okay, I'm gonna leave it be. However, I couldn't get too carried away. Taking in consideration where I was, I decided to walk away from the door and return to the gathering. I'm glad you could make it. The keeper suddenly appeared before me, expression faint as always. I twitched. I didn't have a sense for the presence of those without strings. How was your evening been? If I remember correctly, when we met earlier, you were on the path to the cemetery. Did you visit? I visited in place of a friend. She smiled cordially. I see. Did you notice the Mikami section? She furrowed her brows apologetically. Forgive me if I go on for too long, but there's an interesting history with the Mikami family and the shrine. Over a century ago, worship had been in great decline in the region. Thanks to the cooperation between the Mikami family and the original shrine head, family energy was re-injected into the shrine. One part was simply financial, but the other was spiritual. The Mikami bloodline is said to house an essence of the gods. That is why members are buried intact without cremation. Over time, the two families became one and the same under the Mikami name. The kanji has changed, but that's another story altogether. Is the priestess also from the Mikami family? She smiled at my attentiveness. Yes, she is, the youngest generation. She gazed at me with a touch of coldness. I would love if young people like you would take interest in the shrine. If you have a chance, you could talk with the priestess, or if you'd prefer, ask me your inquiries. Inquiries? Yeah. I couldn't discern her age. I would be happy to answer. That's generous of you. She smiled humbly. I am but a keeper for the gods. At that moment, a townsperson appeared and whispered into Keeper's ear. I'm afraid I'm needed for something. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. With a polite nod, Keeper walked away. Before long, I found the priestess and approached quickly. Good evening. She stopped mid-step as she had intended to walk elsewhere. The entire evening, the priestess had been moving around so much that I had just barely caught her for a moment to talk. She looked at me blankly. Hello. Her brows raised very slightly. You're the visitor. To her, I was but a guest to the town. To me, she could be an important source for my investigations. Observing her features, I found again her similarity to Mikami Itoha. Yet she also held herself in a different way than the languidness of Shoko's target. Her eyes really were gold, nor the trick of the light from a distance. My tongue loosened unintentionally. You have golden eyes. Fairy eyes. It's a term from another country that refers to golden eyes, eyes that can see the unseen. I wonder what she saw, if she saw anything different from what I saw, from what normal people saw. I had once been told about fairy eyes, that my left eye gave me my ability. She smiled. In that case, you also have a fairy eye. One blue eye and one gold eye. You have pretty eyes. You do. The fucking Uno reverse card. Thank you so much for the hydrate, Elder. Also, my lips are very dry, so I'm gonna put some chapstick. No, there you go. I'm talking a lot, and having braces is not easy. Keeping these babies hydrated. There you go. I hydrated with water, and I hydrated my lips as well. Thank you very much. The priestess looked a bit surprised by my compliment. Then she smiled again. You have pretty eyes. My heart skipped a beat. What does a priestess for this shrine do? She paused for a moment to put together an answer. We preside over ceremonies and maintain the shrine. Keeper also takes a role in those matters, but priestesses are closest to the power of the stringless god. The stringless god, that was a name I did not recognize. I tried to imagine the god of the local religion as I jotted down a note on it. My mind, sorry. Stringless god? She took on a serious expression. Yes, stringless god. She made a distracted swish of her head. Regarding ceremonies, I will also be performing the thread-cutting sword dance next week. She stopped and looked away. Following her gaze, I saw the blindfolded girl from earlier in the day with Keeper. The priestess and the blindfolded girl were twins. Two identical people in the same small town could scarcely be unrelated doppelgangers. Was the blindfolded girl in some sort of trouble that could warrant the priestess concern? Clearing my eyes, clearing my ears, I could not hear the conversation over the low noise of general chatter. The priestess looked at them with a complicated expression. If you have time, I invite you to watch the dance. Then she left. After my chat with the priestess, the gathering came to a close. I returned to the inn, exchanging a few words of small talk with the innkeeper, who also mentioned the ceremonial dance upcoming. It was now well dark outside, lit by lights. A small circular window was shuttered for the night. Taking a hot shower to clean away the sweat and grime of the day, I prepared to enter the hot spring to wash away my fatigue. A bamboo pipe poured the hot water into the pool. A wooden wash basin was set nearby. Water spilled over the spring's edge. My body was stitched together, covered in scars from the incident that left me comatose for weeks this year. I had no choice but to book a private one. Submerging myself up to below my shoulders, I felt warmth seep into my bones. I also poured myself a small cup of alcohol for a different kind of warmth, sipping the cold drink and feeling its burn. Now then, what did you find today, Mana? I used to talk with Shoko about cases, but now I could only talk to myself like someone without even a rubber ducky. The local religion worshipped an entity called the Stringless God. The priestess had made motions of cutting and would perform a dance called the thread-cutting sword dance. In other words, a major part of the shrine was a severance of strings. What strings? It wasn't black strings today. Shoko had never mentioned the Stringless God. In fact, Shoko rarely spoke of her hometown aside from snippets of her youth and her yearn for Mikami Hitoha. From the outside, the shrine appeared like any other local religion with its own flavor of Shinto, but it gave me the same gut feeling as a New Age cult. Why? No particular reason. It could have been as simple as a fervor of prayer. At worst, I could apologize to them mentally for calling them suspicious. With priestesses who resembled Mikami Itoha, was likely more likely than not, Mikami Itoha was also involved in the Stringless God shrine. That left me with the question of whether she was dead or alive. Dead was the official statement. If she was alive, she likely didn't up and abandon her identity like many do when overwhelmed with events in her life. After all, there was another factor, the shrine. I poured myself another cup. In conclusion, it's still complicated. I soaked for a while longer before I started feeling lightheaded, which prompted me to get out and return to my room. After drying off my hair with a hairdryer, I rolled into my futon and closed my eyes. Sleep came quickly. Finally, we managed to go to sleep. Oh wow. Then I started dreaming. I stood in the street of Taito, located 2 blocks away from my office. It was an ordinary street with no defining features aside from the good food truck that came on Wednesdays. The food truck wasn't parked, nor were any people bustling by. The only remnants of humanity were their advertisements plastered on the tall buildings, the trees they planted, the roads they paved. The weather resembled that day. It was like any other day. Unmemorable clouds, unmemorable sky, unmemorable temperature. No one was here. Bam! A sudden impact sent me stumbling to the ground. A figure appeared before me, but he had no strings. A faceless man. No, I just didn't remember what he looked like at the time of this event. I knew his face from the police reports. Was he clean-shaven or disheveled? What sort of expression was he making? I didn't know. He didn't seem human. My memory of that time was covered with a dark veil. It was the expected result from being assaulted, better yet brutalized on hard asphalt streets, that a coma was the only solution. He had a knife. This country had knife laws, but laws clearly didn't matter to madmen. He used a knife to stab me. Although we had no relation, not even tenuously through cases I worked on, he lost it one day and decided to play kill the detective. He didn't hate me, he just wanted to kill me. I heard screams, but no one was there. Whose screams? My scream? My dream throat was too busy bubbling up with red to make such coherent sounds. My head slammed against the ground, which jiggled, kindly reminded me that this was a dream. One that didn't hurt. Not really. The real event hurt. He kept slashing, stabbing. I couldn't really tell, carving up mostly my torso. For all the damage I received, I came out mostly intact thanks to the doctor's hard work. I like to think I at least looked better than Frankenstein's monster. I had this nightmare before, so I started counting his movements as if counting sheep. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hoped that the food truck wouldn't stop coming to this street. I really like this shrimp pad thai. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I felt like Julius Caesar in the Senate, and I had counted to over 23 a time or two on other nights. The doctors had told me they couldn't identify the number of wounds. 10. I woke up. Sitting up, I touched my slightly damp pillow that had been stained by cold sweat. I checked my phone, as the sky conveyed in broad strokes. It was still night time, but if one wanted to be pedantic, it was early morning. I had only slept a few hours. I could never fall back asleep immediately, so I decided to take a quick walk to set my mood. Oh shit. We can either go to the cemetery or the shrine. The cemetery was sussy, and we went to the shrine once and got a dead end. So I think we'll go to the cemetery. Don't do this in real life, kids. Don't go to the cemetery early in the morning or like late at night, please. I went to the cemetery, walking down an empty path. The tree now shaded by the stairs from the moonlight. Entering through the gates, I passed the general section to reach the Mikami section and stopped before the family grave. A single girl stood under the moonlight. It was the blindfolded girl. She looked to me calmly. "Hello, detective. What are you doing here so late?" "I should ask you the same. I was just taking a walk to get a breath of fresh air." She grinned. "Fresh air at the cemetery? Even if it's the truth, you should make up a better excuse, or else people will question you." "I'm visiting my family members." She gestured to the Mikami family grave. I looked at the tombstone in silence. Moonlight shined upon the family name engraved. "The moon is bright tonight." She pouted. "I see, if that's what you say." She walked down the lane of graves, stopping at Mikami Ito's. I followed. She smiled. "If you were to say that the moon is beautiful tonight, do you think it could be construed as a declaration of love?" Soseki without context of affection. I don't think it works. I'm not too fond of the moon as an analogy of love. Such a cold thing. A rock that only reflects the light of the sun, unable to produce its own. Such a thing can't be called love. I didn't care for the purported response of, "I would die for you," either. What do you prefer? When talking about the moon? Madness. Moonstruck. Would you use that to describe people who see things that don't exist? Having always seen black strings, I had long lost track of reality and illusion. What madmen saw could truly exist, but did they understand their own sight? I was no psychiatrist. I only knew enough to live my life undisturbed and address the crimes of people who were unfortunately disturbed. I would use a different term, for example, cursed or blessed. At least for myself. Do you have an interpretation of the moon you like? She considered it. I wonder, maybe rebirth. She gave me another smile. The waxing and waning of the moon always repeats. The moon will always become round, whole, and shining. It disappears bit by bit in the darkness to our eyes, turning all to darkness. Yet, as the silver of white reappears and grows, before you know it, the full moon once more hangs in the sky. Isn't it romantic? It's a good motive. Do you write? Not really, not recently. A small amount of resentment trickled into her smile. Too bad humans only have one life. In the end, we all go to the ground. She kicked Mikami Ito's plot with a hum. No one berated her for her disrespect towards the dead. She suddenly raised her brows. Moon talk aside, am I in front of the right tombstone? Mikami Ito's tombstone? I barely asked about the woman, but I got the feeling that gossip had already circulated around town about my interest in Mikami Itoha. The close-knit nature of small towns was dangerous. At least I could get away from a blind girl if I needed to. Oh my god. Also, thank you so much for the hydrate, Elder. You always look out for me. Cheers. Give me just a second. I need to blow my nose. Okay, that's a little better. But I think I'm getting a stuffy nose, and I'm not a big fan of that. Yes, Mikami Itoha is dead. The girl frowned. You see, that's why she has a grave here. Her body is buried beneath the ground, just like everyone else who died in the Mikami family. She smirked. Are you convinced? No. The blindfolded girl looked surprised. Why? I never knew Mikami Itoha, but there's still the chance that she could be alive. I'm searching to find what happened to her. I had no good reason. Not yet. I'm gonna say you also think so. Regardless of my own flimsy clues to Mikami Itoha's whereabouts, I had a particular feeling about the girl in front of me. You also think so. She also had some sort of grievance with the matter of Mikami Itoha. Perhaps the woman truly was dead. However, her death was possibly suspicious. If she wasn't dead then that in itself was suspicious. Is Mikami Itoha dead? She frowned. Mikami Itoha is dead. My sight wasn't a lie detector, so I just stared at her without speaking. Then she laughed, a lilt in her voice like bells. A smile spread across her face. She stepped closer to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, and whispered into my ear, her breath tickling against my skin. If you can prove yourself to me, I'll help you out, detective. She smelled sweet. Soon enough, she backed away to her previous position. But only if you can prove yourself to me. I'll do my best then. She was friendly. At the very least, she wouldn't get in the way. That was what she indicated to me, but I couldn't understand why. She was a member of the Mikami family, the family that buried Mikami Itoha and declared her dead, with a private funeral and all the deceased matters. The associated matters, sorry. Could I ask why you're here again? You already have an idea why I'm here. I really did come out for a breath of fresh air, but I let her come to her own conclusions. Her brows furrowed despite her smile. Good question. Then the darkness in her expression lit up. Sorry, something just fell in my desk. I'm not quite sure what happened. I'm uneasy. Is my desk haunted? I'm not sure what happened. It's like something that was already sitting on the desk fell on the desk again. But it was just like on the corner of my eye. I couldn't really see, and I am without glasses. I stream without glasses. Fuck, my desk's haunted, guys. Who you gonna call? Help! I don't want to answer. The blind girl continued to smile. She stepped on Mikami Itoha's grave. Then she yawned. Following her contagious yawn, I let out my own. She pouted. I suppose it's rather late. You should head off to bed soon. Same to you. She smiled. Of course. Good night, detective. Sweet dreams. After returning from my late night walk, I changed clothes and slipped into my futon. Sleep came instantly. I did not dream. Morning came with a warm sunlight and the chirps of birds. I woke up with a standard routine not worth mentioning and ate breakfast. Popping my laptop out of my bag, I set it on the table and connected to the inn Wi-Fi. Stringless God. I typed out the phrase, tacking on the region of my trip into the search query before pressing enter. First was a 2-sentence long Wikipedia entry, followed by a number of unrelated hits. Scrolling down the search engine results page, I found a strange website. It was a site with bare styling, one that didn't seem to have any popular website templates promoting the worship of the stringless god here in this town. Small font in the footer noted funding by the Mikami family. The dated look in parts of the website and the more modern components on other pages made the website appear halfway completed and abandoned. Large in the center of the information page sat a countdown timer boldly labeled as a time to salvation. The timer did not tick, the numbers did not change. Naturally, whatever salvation was would never come. A familiar term, an unpleasant term. Salvation was an easy thing to advertise. I right-clicked to inspect element, finding nothing particularly interesting in the HTML. The countdown was just a placeholder, hard-coded with numbers. I navigated to the people page. The people were displayed in a 2-column layout, no familiar faces in sight. Scanning through the list to the topmost name caught my eye. Mikami Yasunobu. According to his profile, he was the head of the shrine and Mikami family. Born in this town, he married a woman whose name was not listed and had 3 daughters. The wife died 25 years ago, and he was supposedly single. I opened a new tab and searched for this man name. I only found a few business articles mentioning his death 5 years ago. Returning to the incomplete website, I clicked around some more to find that the site hadn't been updated in 5 years. All external links led to the town's tourism promotion pages. Despite the apparent desertion of the site, the owners were still paying for hosting and the domain name. What a waste. I jotted down some notes about my findings, scribbling chicken scratch in ink. No one else needed to read my handwriting. Wait. Putting down my pen, I flipped through the notebook's earlier pages and checked the front cover. Vacation planning. I heaved out a groan at the notebook label and plopped my cheek against the cool table. Considering that I was paying for a vacation, I could spend more time enjoying myself than thinking about a possibly dead woman for Shoko. I finished clicking around the websites before tearing out the offending pages from my notebook, tucking them into the investigation notebook. Lightly smacking my cheeks with both hands, I switched gears to think about my trip. I'd put down on my itinerary that I'd go to a nearby tourism spot tomorrow. Let's look up info on that instead. Click, click. The morning passed and I went out for lunch. After enjoying a hot bowl of ramen, I talked to a few townspeople. I spoke to them at the town path. Likely because they knew I was interested, they ended up bringing Mikami up themselves. Oh, she passed away of heart disease soon after her father. It runs in the family. Her grandfather also had a few heart problems. We were close back in the day. It's a shame she died so young. I'm glad our priestesses are healthy. They didn't seem to have inherited the genes from the heart issues, even though they look so similar to Itoha. The priestesses were despondent for a while after she passed away. Were they close? Close enough. They were among the only people allowed to go to the private funeral. It's tradition, you. You couldn't go to their grandfather's funeral either. You know, I'm still upset about that. Oh, don't let this depressing talk drag your mood down. I heard from the innkeeper that you knew Soko. That girl went to the city, didn't she? The conversation shifted. Itoha was always a bit sickly. Did she ever go missing? Missing? No one in her family ever reported her as missing. City folks sure have interesting imaginations. Not much happens when you're sick around here. People don't get spirited away. Oh my god, that's like the movie. She was often bedridden, so we didn't see her much, especially when her condition was bad, but she was around. I heard it was a heart disease? Yes, heart disease. No one could have predicted that it would take her so soon, even though she was often ill. But be sure to stay healthy, young miss. Young people these days often sit around all day for their jobs. It's not so good for you. Slay, old woman. Ah, of course. I ended up getting fussed over. Oh my god. Walking off to the rest of my lunch, I spotted the blindfolded girl in the distance and approached. She was in the park on the orange cobblestone path lined with benches and streetlights. Trees and bushes sat along the edge of the path. She wrapped a black string around her index finger, twirling it back and forth till the string fell off her finger like a snake. When she flicked the darkness, it vibrated, making not a single noise. The black string floated in the air between people, marking a relationship of negative emotions. It wasn't like a harp string one could simply pluck. Strings weren't supposed to be physically tangible, so I reached out to my hand to touch a black string. My finger passed through without resistance, as always. The string density in this town was low, I abruptly thought. She smiled and greeted me. Hello, detective. Hello. I was wondering, do you know my name? She pointed to herself with one finger and cocked her head to the side. If I could see her eyes, she probably would have winked at me. Oh my. Mikami. Stating her family name, I watched her reaction for confirmation, but I had no clue about her given name. Did Mikami's names have a pattern? I'm afraid I have no idea. She grinned. That's all right. Do your best, detective. She wasn't going to tell me her name. Making a twirl that caused her dress to flare out, she took a few steps around me as if observing from all angles. I don't know if you've noticed, but people are interested in you. You're a sleuth, so everyone thinks you've got some sort of interesting case and wants in on the gossip. They're happy to answer questions, but she smiled wryly. Riley? No. I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry. The more you dig, the more likely you'll upset people, and you won't be able to stay in this town anymore if that happens. Thank you for the warning. I'm also interested in you, you see. She returned to my front, tugging at a black string behind her back. Her motion rippled down the darkness. She made a sad smile. Do you think it would be better if everyone in this world got along? If everyone in this world got along, there wouldn't be these black strings. I closed my eyes for a second, imagining the world without strings. I didn't hate it, the idea of not seeing them, assuming I wasn't working as a detective anymore. I'd be out of a job in that case. Her brows raised at my response. Of course, her question wasn't about strings. Everyone in the world getting along is a criteria for utopia. Some religions promise that when you die and go to heaven, or when the special day comes, everyone in this world will get along. People's hearts aren't so simple. She looked at me curiously. Why do you say that? I'm not saying that free will and all getting along are incompatible realities, but it'd just be missing something. There's always someone you get along with better than another, unless it's a boring world where everyone is the same. No one is special, so no one is unspecial. The good emotions that people have wouldn't matter anymore either. I don't mind our world right now. I saw many times scenes that might make someone wish people could get along all the time. People fought, yelled, and resorted to violence. Sometimes they were arrested. Sometimes they just died. As someone who followed black lines, I saw these people a lot. However, the incidents that made it to a detective's table were normal to start with. Normal people could fight and resolve their issues without resorting to bloodshed. Their relationships might get severed, but they might also grow stronger from the process. The blindfolded girl smiled. A world where no one is special, huh? I agree with you on that. I wonder, a world where everyone gets along? A world where no one feels special things towards other people? That'd be lonely. Are you also a philosopher, detective? Not at all. Is there something troubling you? Nope, just philosophical questions. She tugged harder at the black string in her hand. Ah! She gasped in surprise. Abruptly, she let go of the string. The resulting undulation running down the string made me wonder what physics the thin black followed. The movement eventually stopped. I tilted my head in confusion, forgetting that she couldn't see. She frowned. What time is it? I pulled out my phone to check for her. Just past 3 in the afternoon. I guess I'll have to go now to make it to my appointment at the clinic. She smiled. You know, detective, I do like chatting with you. Are you free for dinner tonight? I'd like to invite you out for a meal. Hey, accept. Sure. The blindfolded girl blushed. Haha, yay. She offered to jot down an address and time for me. Pulling out her notebook and pen for her to write, I felt her soft, outstretched fingers brush against my hand. She wrote beautiful characters with their only flaw, what they had become lopsided on the lined paper. See you later. Then she gave me a delicate wave and left. After my chat with the blindfold girl, I walked to the shrine. Climbing the stairs, I saw the priestess seemingly deep in thought under a tree. Noticing me, she turned to watch me ascend to the last step. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Compared to the previous evening, the shrine grounds appeared empty. There was just the afternoon sunlight warming the stones and the two of us. Could I ask a few questions about the shrine? She looked at me in anticipation. What are the beliefs behind the worship of the stringless god? Who is the stringless god? At my simple question, a furrow in her brow loosened. Strings. She made a gesture at something in the air. I couldn't see, taking a thin invisible something between her slender fingers. She spoke blankly. Human bonds are tied by strings. They come in unique colors for each and every emotion between us. But why strings? Do people really need strings to feel? In fact, these strings are nothing more than puppet strings. Like a spider's cobweb tapping its prey, the strings manipulate our feelings. For a moment, she looked displeased. For example, rejection and disgust. Thus, the strings must be removed for people to be free. How? Because they are strings, they can be severed. Yesterday, you may have seen part of a regular ritual. The priestesses of the stringless god can cut the strings between people. The intent of these rituals is the removal of all strings, purification. String cutting is done in a step-by-step fashion, one string at a time, so purification refers to the severance of the last string. The stringless god is the source of humanity's abilities to reject the strings that puppet us. It is the enabler of our freedom. The blessing that it gives people is stringlessness. Stringlessness unnerved me. It wasn't just a matter of uncanny valley in the sense of sight, but rather in all 5 senses and the 6th one reserved for strings. Yet, maybe I was the one who was seeing the wrong thing all along. To everyone else, a stringless human was normal. Everything came around full circle, but I didn't realize it. Searching for words, I met her golden eyes that shone with conviction. I can see the strings. She ran her hand through the air. She had a scrutinizing gaze. Then she touched one of my black strings, a thin gray one, to someone whom I vowed never to talk to again. She touched it, twisting it in her hand before letting go. She appeared somewhat despondent as she did so. My heart started to race. She wasn't lying. She smiled. What do you think? I trust you, that may be. They may be true. She seemed pleased. What color is the string of hate? The priestess told me plainly. Black. Her response confirmed that we saw at least part of the same reality. What is the breadth of human emotion? Will we lose something or gain something if all strings are cut? She smiled. Nothing will change, but your emotions will become your own. If all the strings are cut, will all humans get along? Her brows furrowed. I don't know. Would you like a world where everyone got along? Repeating the blindfolded girl's question to the priestess, I couldn't help but notice how the priestess' expression softened at the topic that made the blindfolded girl darken. Yes. Why? She spoke with a hopeful expression. Wouldn't it be nice if there could be less sad things in the world? Less reason for people to be hurt? It would be a happier, kinder world if everyone got along. Warmth overflowed from her eyes. I understood at that moment that she yearned for a dream. The happy, kind of world, a shining and beautiful world that most adults stopped believing in. You're a kind person. Her smile disappeared. No. She shook her head. Then she frowned. Not at all. I picked at her eyes, the ones that could see the strings, and wondered what was reflected in her sight. How did she see humans? Were they merely bodies of lines? To think that there was someone else in this world who could see what I thought was my madness. Oh my god. I needed a moment to digest my findings, my brain slowing down now that our conversation had come to a lull. Glancing at the time, the priestess made him to move toward the door of the shrine. I have to go inside, but you're welcome to follow if you'd like to. Pulling out my phone, I checked the time myself. Thank you for the offer, but I have an appointment soon. She nodded to me and went inside the shrine. Having been caught up in the priestess' quiet intensity while talking, I found myself broken out of a daze. I looked around, seeing nothing of note, and left. Descending the shrine stairs, I took out my notebook to check the address that the blindfolded girl had written down. If a person writing could reflect their soul, what did hers reflect? She had beautiful handwriting. Ooh, we're in the coffee shop. Walking slowly, I arrived at a quaint little restaurant with a bell on the door that tinkled as I entered. It was a Western style with intricately embossed wooden walls and black and white checkerboard tiling. Pink heart-shaped placements were set before every seat, and cupcake-shaped glass decorations sat on every table along with the menu. The kitchen could be seen from the dining room behind a bar. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the white-framed rounded rectangle-shaped windows. The blindfolded girl sat not too far from the entrance and waved at me as I entered, gesturing for me to sit in the seat across from her. She smiled. "Hello, detective." Taking a seat, I opened up the menu before me for a quick glance. "How was your doctor's appointment?" She responded nonchalantly. "It went well." She gestured to her eyes, which were hidden behind cloth. Running my finger along glossy laminate, I noticed there were no textures for her to read off of. I assumed she couldn't see. "Do you need help with the menu?" She smiled. "No, thank you, but I'm familiar with this place's menu." "How was your day?" "It was good. I visited the shrine." The girl frowned. "Was she, the priestess, there?" "Yes." Her brows furrowed. "I see." "Are you sure?" As I looked over the menu, she called a waitress over to order. The blindfolded girl summoned her smile back onto her face. "I'd like to order 1 curry katsudon." There she went, ordering without waiting for me. Scanning over the menu, I didn't have a strong preference, so chose at random, my eyes landing on a rare dish. I didn't know they served this out here. Could I get the taco rice dish? Jotting down our orders, the waitress left our table. "Do you like taco rice?" "It's alright." "That's too bad. I like ordering it sometimes, but I was in a katsu mood today." "Fried food is yummy." She beamed with a blush. "You understand me, detective. You see, good things taste bad, but bad things taste good." Food aside, I've been meaning to ask, why Mikami Itoha? Mikami Itoha herself isn't all that relevant to me. I'm doing this for someone important to me. She can't do it herself anymore, so I have to. She cares a lot about Mikami Itoha, and I care about her. Shoko, my mentor, my friend. I could never meet her again, but I wanted to fulfill her wish. The girl's smile had disappeared, replaced with a somber frown. I can understand the sentiment of doing dangerous things for people important to you. I'm mostly trying to keep up out of danger here. She seemed to pause and think, tilting her head to the side. She smiled. I'm sure you'll be alright? I had a talk with your sister who told me about the local religion. You're also a priestess, but I don't see you around the shrine. Could you tell me more about the stringless god? She smiled sadly. I'm not much of a priestess anymore. Then she frowned. I don't participate in the activities. I don't want to be involved with the shrine, and I'm blind. Can you also see the strings? The blindfolded girl smiled as if I was being silly. Do you think I can see? Who knows? The waitress arrived with our orders, putting a pause to the conversation topic. We gave thanks for the food and started to eat. Although the blindfolded girl appeared dexterous around people, dancing around me when we chatted, she showed her clumsy side to me when she grasped for utensils to eat. Poor woman, come on. She was a fork type of girl. I picked up my own chopsticks while watching her hands. She frowned as she started to speak. My sister, she really believes in the stringless god. It's complicated. The Mikami family is deeply intertwined with the shrine, so you'll find out a lot about both if you keep looking into Mikami Itoha. The girl twisted her lips up into her usual smile. But I can't really answer your questions. She took a bite of her food. You've got a bit of sauce on your lip. She pouted and blushed. Her pink tongue darted out to lick the side of her mouth. Did I get it? Yes. She smiled with relief. We ended up talking about food, such as how Tex-Mex Okinawa dish ended up on the menu here in the mountains and why curry went well with tonkatsu. Before I knew it, we finished eating. Night had fallen outside. Going to the counter to pay, the blindfolded girl started to take her wallet out. She grinned. My treat. No, let me pay. She pouted. I invited you for dinner, so I'll pay. I can pay. The girl smiled defiantly. Nope. Take me out on a date next time if you want to treat me to something. Just kidding. If I have a chance, then. I ignored the expression of the person at the counter. She blushed with a pout. I'll look forward to it, detective. Oh my god, we're taking this girl on a date. Leaving the restaurant, we walked down the same path for a distance. However, as her home and my lodgings were in opposite directions, we later split. After some time, I returned to the inn. I relaxed soaking in the hot springs under the night sky. Overheating and getting a tad pruny, I remember I had wanted to enjoy the nature in this area on my trip. I went out for a stroll, breathing in the cool evening air. Reaching a lake, I looked at clear waters while leaning against a wooden railing. A wooden path lined the side of the lake. The forest around the path's railing threatened to swallow the wood up. A little path of rough stone steps led up a hill to somewhere. As the sky was overcast, no moonlight, only darkness could be reflected. I walked along the lake and then stepped into a forest path. It was steep. A rope barrier surrounded it. Nature seemed to threaten to swallow it up here too. The ground soon grew uneven, only dirt devoid of grass informing where to walk. My legs complained about the trek, but my eyes rejoiced. Looking up to the trees, I found that the clouds had moved out. I saw a starry sky. I didn't know that this place was remote enough to see stars. In the city, there was no chance. The only stars were those on the ground. Shoko would enjoy a hike here. She probably had. I heard a rustling noise. I took a deep breath. I was being paranoid. Seeing no strings, I concluded no people were present. The noise could have come from animals. I continued walking. Oh, that was a crunch. Thinking I had stepped on a fallen branch, I looked down at my feet. Nothing was there. Where did the noise come from? Then I saw it. A monster. A monster made of man and darkness stood in the forest, crunching away at something unknown. Interesting. The darkness burst forth from the man, who looked dazed and lifeless. It was covered in red strings, eyes, countless rows of teeth. Drip, drip, drip. Nothing fell to the ground, but the sound echoed in my ears. My breath turned to cement in my throat, cold sweat rolling down my neck. Suddenly my scars began to itch, as if the monsters were caressing my skin. It hadn't seen me yet. The man also looked like this. A monster. Darkness. Red and black darkness. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to calm down. The monster hadn't spotted me yet, idling many meters away from where I stood. As long as I stayed quiet, around as quiet as I was walking here, it wouldn't notice me. Planning out a course to escape, I started to walk away slowly. I pressed a finger against my temple and counted the hours I slept. Was I so exhausted that I could hallucinate monsters? The scars on my body pulsed. Monsters, did they truly exist? Even the black strings of hate I saw were merely an extension of human emotions. They were human, through and through. But what if... I hated this line of thought. That man, the man who tried to kill me and haunted my dreams, I remembered what that person looked like on a terrible day. He looked like the monster. He wasn't the same monster, but he looked like the monster. Why did a monster appear before my eyes? What was I seeing? Walking still slow and steady, I contemplated how I couldn't outrun a snail. To not get caught, I was better off not getting noticed. Not looking in front of me, I bumped into a human figure and stumbled. Who was it? A slender, feminine figure. The panic congesting in my veins cleared as I saw who it was. Oh! Can I just... The one with hidden eyes. Oh, I can speak. I can choose who I see here. I chose this one because we already are more intimate. Why so jumpy, detective? The blindfolded girl looked at me curiously. I quickly peeked behind me, seeing nothing much to my relief. Also, thank you so much for the hydrate, Elder. I love you. I thought I bumped into a wild animal or something of the sort. Wild animal? That monster was nowhere close to a wild animal. She frowned. A wild animal? It was nothing. Are you having a nighttime walk? I suppose I am. She smiled. My sister likes taking walks in the forest. You're close to your family. The girl grinned again. I don't know how to say that. I don't even know what that means. Nope, not at all. I had an older sister who I didn't care for in the slightest, and my father wasn't much to talk about it either. That wry grin faded into a frown. Mikami Itoha is our older sister. She was our father's eldest daughter, and we were his younger twin daughters. What's your father's name? The girl spoke with a blank look on her face. Mikami Yasunobu. I returned to the inn. Just like that, okay. I spent the following day in a nearby town, enjoying a number of tourist activities and not thinking about my personal investigation. The rickshaw puller said that I was the lightest customer he had all day. I didn't know if I was happy about the information, but the tour was entertaining. After eating my fill and exploring a historic site, I returned to the inn in the evening. I soaked in the hot springs, breathing in steam. The water's warmth seeped into my bones and turned me to jelly, washing away my fatigue. I leaned against the stones at the edge of the pool for support. In my right hand, I held a cup of cool white wine. Oh yeah, now this is good. This is nice. A rosy color floated to my cheeks from not just the hot spring's warmth, but also the alcohols. I was taking advantage of a private bath to drink. Ha! Did I need to drink less? What a relaxing day I had. Shoko, your secret lover got eaten by a monster, you know. Yeah, that is probably what happened, honestly. Honestly. I probably was a little drunk as I dragged myself out of the hot spring, sloppily drying myself off with a towel and my hair with the hairdryer. I slept quickly that night as usual. Another day arrived. The sun shined through the open shoji from my room. When I checked the weather, the forecast stayed the same, with clear skies for the upcoming days. A good sign for the ceremony dance event. Ooh. Hold on. I happened to meet Keeper on the way to the ceremony again. We made some small talk about how I had been enjoying my visit so far, but before long the conversation shifted to Mikami-related topic. She smiled. I'm glad you've been keeping along with our priestesses. They're both very friendly. I heard they had an older sister. I pretended not to know the relationship between Mikami Itoha and the older sister. Waited to see if Keeper would hint me to new clues. Yes, Mikami Itoha. It seems you are interested in her affairs. It's virtuous of you to ask about her for Shoko, but I'm afraid she passed away many years ago. Keeper made a grief-filled expression. She died of heart failure. She corroborated the information I collected from the townspeople. Up to this point, the conversation was normal, albeit disappointing. The woman who Shoko yearned for was mundanely dead, as far as we all are concerned. Even if some brought up suspicion on Mikami Itoha's death, no statements had come forward to show signs of her continued life. Then, Keeper reminded me of my suspicions regarding the shrine. She smiled. However, all will be well soon. The day of salvation will soon be among us, and the dead will be revived. At that time you can speak with her as you wish. I hope we can trouble you to stay with us for long enough to see that day. Salvation? Can the dead come back to life? Yes, she will. Salvation and the return of the dead to the living, those were concepts that could have many meanings. A chill ran down my spine at the thought of a mass murder incident happening to the sizable crowd of people who gathered for the local religion's events. Poison cocktails could easily be fed to people as salvation drinks, leading them to their unknown demise. That was one meaning of salvation. At the very least, death hadn't been mentioned in the priestess' explanation of the stringless god, so I called myself from the extreme case. Keeper's mentions of the revival of the dead reminded me of how popular Christian Messiah is said to have returned from the dead. Perhaps Mikami Itoha was in hiding for these years so that her return could be a proclamation of a Messiah. People like those sort of miracles. That idea was better, but still unnerving. There was, of course, always the minute chance that Keeper's perceived reality was true. Was Mikami Itoha dead? I see. Keeper took out a note card and wrote down a time, passing it to me. She grinned as she handed over. There's a gathering later today with food and drink like before. Our priestesses will be performing a purification. You're welcome to attend. It will be at the same location as the previous gathering. Putting the card away, I took a deep breath as subtly as I could. I'll be there. Parting with Keeper, I arrived at the cemetery. Passing the cemetery gates, I made my way toward the Mikami section. I stopped in front of Mikami Itoha's grave, staring at the inscription on her tombstone. So, are you dead? I started to draw out the timeline for this case. Mikami Itoha was in her 30s at the time of her death. Based on her birth year, she was a few years older than Shoko, making it a friendship between different grade levels. Why did Shoko say she was missing? Mikami Ito had died around the time Shoko last visited her hometown. That was 5 years ago. Shoko wouldn't have been able to attend Mikami Ito's funeral due to its private nature. However, she should have either known about the death or been informed afterward. Reality was that we lived in an age of technology and easy communication. Next, I wanted to look at Shoko and my matters. Shoko died around 3 years after Mikami Ito's death. A few months after Shoko's death, I was attacked on the street by a man who I perceived as a monster. That sounded like an isolated incident, but the attacker unexpectedly came from this town. The next major category of clues was the relationship between people. Specifically, there was the Mikami family, the wealthy and eccentric family made of persons of interest. At the top of the relevant section of the family tree sat a Mikami Yasunobu. He had 3 daughters, Mikami Itoha, the blindfolded girl, and the priestess. None of the daughters resembled him, which was no surprise as they all resembled each other. Did they resemble the mother? If that was the case, then they all had to share the same mother, which didn't seem quite right. A whole bunch of mysteries and no backup. Shoko, I'm trying to understand why you didn't get anywhere with this case, but couldn't you have left me with a few more hints? Heaving a sigh, I crouched down at the grave. As before, I saw no black strings from her plot. Squinting, I found nothing. Then again, the priestess could have cut all of this purport dead woman's strings. What happened to you, Mikami Itoha? Did you really die from heart problems? The grave did not respond. Of course. Seeing no luck at the cemetery, I decided to visit the shrine early. I cooled my head while walking the stairs extremely slowly, looking up at the clear blue sky. The weather really was nice. Oops, fuck. This place was actually rather pretty. Thinking that I should take a few pictures, I pulled out my phone and filled it with the camera application. Jesus. With the back camera, I snapped a number of shots of the shrine, the sky, and the plants. With the front camera, I tried for a selfie, feeling particularly like a tourist. The tranquility was broken by 2 pairs of fast footsteps from a corner behind the shrine. Oh, the girlies! The blindfolded girl rushed out from behind that corner, the priestess chasing hastily after. The priestess grabbed the blindfolded girl's hand despite the latter trying to shake her off. The blindfolded girl seemed angry. The priestess, on the other hand, looked desperate. Neither had noticed me, so they argued loudly. The blindfolded girl shouted, "Let go!" The priestess frowned. "Not until you talk to me." The blindfolded girl smiled I can't fucking do that. For a moment. There's a reason why I didn't want to cut strings anymore, but you know that how that turned out. If subtle doesn't get through to you, the answer is badly. You can't blame me, but you shouldn't do this. I love you, so why can't you understand? Thinking I should call out to them, I found my words lost on my tongue with the realization that I didn't know their names. Mikami, was that all I knew? Detective, the blindfolded girl called out to me. Both of their faces turned toward me, swiveling in such unison that I nearly lost my balance. The priestess' grips on her system loosened, allowing the blindfolded girl to free her hand with a sharp shake. The blindfolded girl then dashed toward me. She slipped behind me, tugging on my jacket sleeve, and placed me as a shield between her and her sister. Walking toward us, the priestess' shoulders deflated. If her eyes met mine, I felt the grip on my sleeve strengthen, my arm pulled back with a jerk. At that movement, the priestess seemed to stare through my body. Her sister fidgeted behind my back, all the while not letting go of my sleeve. Unable to form the correct words, the priestess shook her head and looked down to the ground. I have to get ready. She left whatever she wanted to say left unsaid. Once the priestess entered the shrine building, the blindfolded girl finally let go of my sleeve and circled around me to my front. Their expression relaxed. Thank you, detective. She didn't seem to want to talk about her sister and switched gears immediately. She smiled. Coming here to watch? Yes, Keeper invited me. She mentioned that a purification ritual was taking place today. Maybe you'll find something interesting. These things you do have to see to understand. Purification, the cutting of the last string. Her voice dropped off. Then, as if nothing had happened, she made a motion that caused her skirt to twirl and let out a soft laugh like a bell. You're diligent, detective. She blushed. I like it. My heart skipped a beat. Was I really that weak to praise? Now was as good a time as any. What's your name? She smiled at me somberly. Shiki. Just call me Shiki. Shiki? Before long, people began to gather. Shiki slipped away. Keeper appeared at the front to make some announcements, giving a reminder about the upcoming thread-cutting sword dance. Killing time, she even dropped a small joke, eliciting low chuckles from the audience. Was there something strange in the surrounding? My left eye twitched. Finally, the time for purification arrived. Walking to the front, the priestess called for a townsperson. The townsperson hurried up, sitting across from the priestess, just like the one from my first evening in town. Attached to him was a single black string. It was a thin, fragile thing, representing a hatred between him and another. She took it in her fingers, proclaiming it to be his last string binding him. Then she cut it. She cut the black string I had once thought to be inviolable, at least not this way. Beautiful. I met eyes with the priestess. One string turned to two pieces with a slightly silver of gap appearing between them. The string began to fall, dissipating into black specks. The string disappeared. The townsperson cried out in gratitude, clasping his hands together as he dropped to his knees. With conviction, the priestess declared the outcome. He is pure. An air of joy swept over the crowd. They began to applaud. I clapped my hand quietly along with them, observing their happy faces. After the clapping concluded, they fell into a prayer. Suddenly, something felt off. My sense of equilibrium warped, causing me to nearly stumble over my feet. Hobbling to lean over a nearby tree, I pressed my palm against my left eye. The ground was flat. Nothing was shaking, yet something was wrong. I closed both of my eyes for a moment, furrowing my brows. A buzzing noise pierced my eardrums. I gasped. I didn't gasp. Cut. detective? I felt a pair of delicate hands atop my shoulders shaking me. My vision gradually cleared. Shiki, she was very, very close, right up to my face. I could smell her pleasant shampoo as her hair tickled against my cheeks. She was frowning with concern. Rapidly blinking, I backed away to regain my sense of space, only to lightly bump my head against her rough bark. Once my head touched the structure I leaned against, I remember I was under a tree. From the sounds beyond it, it seemed the gathering had entered the socializing phase already. Maybe it was already closing up. Shiki smiled. You're still alive. How much time had passed? What was I doing again? What's wrong? Shiki started to become embarrassed. Realizing that her nose was nearly touching mine, she backed away with a hop. A blush painted her cheeks. You weren't moving for a while. Stepping side to side for a moment, long hair swaying, she cocked her head to the side. She seemed to have made a decision. Then, gesturing with a mock bow, as if welcoming to a secret, she whispered a name. Mikami Itoha. Her whisper was so quiet it did not reach my ears. However, I could read her lips as she enunciated clearly the syllables of my target's name. Shiki grinned. I'll help you with your investigation on that woman. Speaking lowly, speaking slowly, she became my comrade in this case. The ceremony dances in 3 days. Most people attend even if they don't come to the regular meetings. It's a good chance to place it without others noticing. She leaned close, breath tickling against my ear. Hadn't you been wondering about her grave? Reaching out a hand, she tugged on my jacket sleeve and began to lead me away from the shrine. As we walked down the shrine stairs, the sound of the gathering faded into the distance. We found ourselves on the rural path. Shiki spoke so casually, her usual smile not on her face. Let's dig it up. What the fuck? What? Let's dig up Mikami Itoha's grave. I blinked once, twice. Shiki didn't change her expression or laugh with that tinkle in her voice to say she was joking. Suddenly I had questioned myself to the presence of the body. The grave was stringless. I could not ascertain whether or not Mikami Itoha was buried as claimed. If we could uncover a body, then my question would be answered. Shiki grinned mischievously. The land is owned by the Mikami family, so you won't get in trouble. For all that matters, I am the one digging up my so-called older sister's grave. However, this was a bit extreme. Why would she want to? The thread-cutting sword dance always is performed in the evening to emphasize light in the darkness. Shiki's expression turned more serious. That means the visibility will be poorer because of darkness. Poorer for both of us and anyone who might see. It depends on if the moon is bright or not, but we shouldn't have any problems identifying where to dig. I'll provide the shovel for digging. The grave is less than a meter deep. I've moistened the soil, so it shouldn't be terribly hard. So she thought a lot about this. Shiki smiled. Won't you help me, detective? Oh shit. Shiki made her argument with a loose smile. Don't you want to solve this case? What is Mikami Itoha? The photo I had of Shoko and my target burned me in my inner pocket. Were they happy back then? Was Mikami Itoha so important to Shoko? I didn't know anything but the present, where Shoko was dead, despite longing for that woman. I decided to trust Shiki. I look forward to working with you. Gazing into the strip of black cloth that covered her eyes, I asked a question that only a priestess could answer. My eyes weren't enough. I could only see the black strings. Does Mikami Itoha's grave have strings? She paused. Her smile left her. No. Shiki brows furrowed in resentment. It doesn't have strings. That woman never had strings. From the earliest moment I could remember, she didn't have strings. I used to be a priestess. Shiki sneered. I have absolutely no interest anymore, so don't call me a priestess. It's rotten, the stringless god. Rather than cutting strings, I would rather tie them together. She frowned. I'm sure my sister has explained it. She gave me the general gist. In order for humans to reach true freedom, their strings must be cut, which is a blessing of the stringless god. I did buy it. Strings are the relationships between people, hatred and disgust, love and yearning, everything you could ever think of. Shiki smiled sadly for a moment. My sister and I can see strings of the world. We can see all of them in every color. We were born with eyes like that, and the bodies with the power to touch and cut these lines that to most other people don't exist. The Mikami family has always been deeply intertwined with the stringless god's following. We became priestesses and engaged in cutting, purging the false lines, yet we can only see the strings, and we believed in the stringless god's sayings blindly. Shiki became more upset. Even if it's freedom to have them cut, they're just how the world works, so aren't they simply human relationships? Even if what we see, what we have are only fake emotions. She grinned. I suppose I can't quite see anymore. She gestured over her head and eyes. What do you see, detective? What do you mean? Her fingers ran through the air until they touched a black string. After running her index fingers along with it, she grabbed it and yanked, sending her vibrations along the thin darkness. Don't play dumb. Without a doubt, she had figured me out. I see them too. My sight is much more limited than yours, but I've always been able to see strings as well. They're black, and I've never been able to touch them. The black strings of hate. I hadn't told anyone about what I could see since childhood. I hadn't even told Shoko, my mentor, my partner, my friend. Shiki nodded, taking in my words. Her brows furrowed with sadness. So do you think this world is beautiful? Beautiful? I saw a world crisscrossed with darkness. Realizing that I had lost my only companion with Shoko's departure, I wondered. I think it should be. If this world wasn't beautiful, I would be sad. Do you think that this world is beautiful, Shiki? The smile disappeared, replaced with a lost look. I don't know. Then she smiled again and blushed. But I'm glad you see the world through such a kind lens. I'm just a private investigator. Anyways, how should I contact you? Would you prefer to change phone numbers on Lime? I took out my cell phone, tapping open my contacts in that green messaging app. Shiki pouted. I don't have a phone. Let's keep in touch in person instead. Meet me there at the cemetery tomorrow morning, okay? I tucked my phone back into my pocket. What time? She smiled. 10 in the morning. Sure. Nodding at my agreement, she gave me a little wave. See you tomorrow, detective. See you. Thank you so much for the hydrate, Elder. I think I want to finish a playthrough of this today. It's been 2 hours and a half, and I just want to let you guys know that I will do my utmost best to finish a playthrough of this today. I know we already got one ending, that didn't count. So let's see how much longer this has. I think we have 2 to 3 more days, right? So let's see. Also, I will hydrate, thank you. The rest of the day passed without anything of note. Once I crawled into bed, I fell asleep quickly as usual. Then I began to dream again. I returned to the city of Tato. Unlike usual, strings of all colors ran from edge to my vision, but no people were around. I walked, turning my head back and forth to find the origin of the strings. Then I got stabbed. I recognized the presence. Ow. Stab. It actually hurt, even though this was a dream. Another version of the same old dream. Stab. My vision flickered. Like a light going out on a thin candle, the dream ended. I bolted up in the futon, throwing the covers to the side and hurriedly grasped at my chest, the place that still hurt as if it had cracked open. Upon sticking my head through the gap in my pajamas, I touched my skin and found only the roughness of scars, with none of the wetness of blood. At most, it was the sweat from my own palms. Feeling the sunlight filter into my room, I noticed that it was morning. In spite of the tumultuous nature of that sleep cycle, I somehow managed to sleep the whole night. That was rare. I stumbled to my feet, grabbing my phone from where it was charging to check the time. In fact, I had overslept. Groggily ignoring my poor appearance in the mirror, I went through a morning routine not worth mentioning and went to the cemetery. Shiki was there in her usual garb. "Good morning, detective." She smiled. "Somehow I feel a little sorry that you're spending so much time at the cemetery." "I did come here on vacation." Shiki gasped. "Really?" "At least partially, a kind of trip for recuperation, a forced break for my career due to health reasons, which gave me the chance to come here." "Where did my vacation go again?" Shiki grinned. "Have you heard of the healing hot springs?" "Are they really that famous? I was under the assumption that every place tacked on something like that to their advertisements." "Maybe. The sickly detective here to enjoy the healing hot springs, only to find herself entangled in the mystery of a dead woman." Shiki summarized my situation with a serious expression like the narrator for a movie trailer. "Something like that?" "Close enough." "Sickly, huh? I was in the hospital for a long time this year." Shiki's smile disappeared. "I was assaulted on the street by someone, and it didn't end nicely. For me, I mean. A coma for a few weeks followed by months of physical therapy. Before you know it, a year's gone by, but the aftermath doesn't just go away. This is probably what you might call being forced to take a break." Shiki brows furrowed. "Did that have something to do with Mikami Itoha?" "The person who attacked me is from this town, but as far as I can tell, he has nothing to do with Mikami Itoha. At the very least, my reasons for investigating her have nothing to do with him. I mentioned before that I'm doing this all for someone I care about, but I didn't tell you anything about her. I had a partner as a private investigator. She was my mentor and friend, a very important person to me. Her name was Shoko. She passed away. Is it almost 2 years ago? She was the only one who cared about Mikami Itoha. I'd never met the woman in my life, but for Shoko, Mikami Itoha was the person she loved? Oh, so she was. Someone she couldn't forget even after leaving this town, even though Shoko stayed in the city with me and never returned here. According to her, Mikami Itoha went missing 5 years ago. She told me that her biggest regret was not finding out what happened. I remember sitting in the chair next to her hospital bed, holding her hand that had become so weak. She had laughed a low laugh that made her throat vibrate in a funny way and reassured me that she would be all right. We still had more cases to take on after all. But even she didn't believe her own words. She lamented at that time in that place filled with sterile white. If only she could have met Itoha again. We never did take on that case. One day I'll die. If I die, then no one can resolve her regret, so I have to try at least a little bit and tell her what happened. Even if I can't find out the entire truth. Suddenly, warmth wrapped around my fingers. Shiki took my hand and squeezed reassuringly. She smiled at me. "You can do it, detective." Then she loosened her grip and let go of my hand, pausing in silence for a moment. To think that even Mikami Ito had someone who cared about her. Was she that unlikable? No. There wasn't enough to dislike. She rarely interacted with other people, only talking with our father and Keeper. Even then, she seemed to only talk to Keeper. What were we? Shiki shook her head. Your Shoko can never have Mikami Ito back. No matter what you find, Mikami Ito as a human being will already be dead. You see, humans only die once. What do you mean? Shiki smiled. The Mikami family held a private funeral for her. Sounds like we might have just fabricated her death, right? Doctors, in fact, can be bribed. But we didn't bribe anyone. As someone who was at the funeral, I can say without a doubt that she died. Her body never became rigid or began to rot during that time, but she died. As if Sleeping Beauty, she was still. Her heart stopped with her breathing. It wasn't for such a short period of time that you'd be able to zap her and revive her with a defibrillator. Shiki's expression turned darker. It was long enough that her body became ice cold, long enough for brain death. Then that means she should be dead. Shiki made a dry smile. Let me clarify the question you should ask. It's not whether or not Mikami Ito had died, it's whether or not she's dead, whether or not she's missing. You're saying that you think she's some sort of monster. Yep, that's why all we have to do is dig up the corpse. If it's buried down here, then I'll still help you with the information on her death. If it's not buried down here, you're going to need to help me. Shiki frowned. I did watch her coffin get lower than myself, but it was before this happened. She made a slicing gesture with her hand over her eyes. You see, Mikami Ito was the Holy Maiden. Keeper called her that. What does that mean? Shiki smiled helplessly for a moment. I don't know. All I ever did was cut strings, detective. The priestesses, they aren't actually that important, not as precious as the stringless god maiden. We were never so important. After the conversation at the cemetery, we parted for lunch and regrouped at the shrine. To my surprise, a number of townspeople had gathered. Counting against the group from the past two gatherings, I found less people here. There's less people here than usual. It's a purification day. Shiki pointed to one person. The woman was stringless to me, unnerving without a line of darkness connecting to her body. However, had Shiki not singled the woman out, I wouldn't have noticed. Other people black strings passed before and behind her body. Let's go inside. Noticing me wandering toward the audience, Shiki tugged on my sleeve. We went to the door of the shrine and entered, walking through a hallway to a room with a shrine altar as well as the priestess. The daylight cast a square of light onto the light-colored interior through the window washi paper. A small incline of steps led to an altar with a candle inside. Two area of steps that led up to the altar was flanked by a wooden railing and two tall stone lanterns. An opaque Suma sliding door was at the other end of the room. The priestess looked at us, confused. Shiki, and you know that the purification is happening right now. I can't delay. Shiki smiled. I can wait. The priestess frowned. I'll talk to you after this. The priestess hurriedly walked out of the room. It usually doesn't take very long, at least not long enough to have a sensitive conversation. She leaned in and whispered. She spoke to me seriously, the smile gone. If you have a chance, you should take a look around. You're good at this. Shiki pretended to smile ignorantly. Good at what, detective? We waited a while. Just as Shiki mentioned, the princess returned soon enough. The two of them exited the room to the hallway, their footsteps eventually fading into the distance as they left to have a private conversation. I wandered around the room and found nothing out of place. What's the point of lighting a candle during the day? As I squatted in front of the shrine altar, where a lit candle was placed, I heard footsteps followed by the door opening. I stood back up. A townsperson, the one without black strings, entered the room silently. The candle flickered. Ah, hello. The person didn't respond. Then the air warped. Oh my god. She collapsed with a thud, face smashing into the ground in a way that someone fainting wouldn't. I had a crack like the sound of cartilage. That scared me, actually. I was not expecting that. What? I hurried over to check whether she was alright, crouching next to her with my worry increasing by the second as she failed to make any moans or groans. Rolling her body over to lay her flat on her back, I checked for her pulse and breathing. Neither was present. Was this a heart attack or stroke of some sort? Nitroglycerin, nitroglycerin. Ignoring the part of my mind that was panicking over the woman dead or dying, I reached over in my pocket to get my phone. The best course of action was to call emergency services. I stumbled back, falling on my butt. Fingers scraping against the floor, as I shakily backed away, I felt nausea build up in my throat. Buzzing filled my ears. For a fraction of a second, I saw an angel. Then something began to change about the woman prone to the floor. Her body twitched, convulsing at the chest once, twice, thrice. She seemed to rise. A tiny darkness broke through her flesh, tearing out of her like a creature born from an incredibly soft egg. It was hatching. A monster. A dripping darkness crawled out from its egg and was born. Its eyes were red, its tongue was red, its egg was red, and the teeth were sharp. All went black. When I opened my eyes, I saw Shiki. My head rested on her lap, the sweetness of her shampoo tickled my nose as she leaned over for a moment, causing me to shift. She smiled at me with concern. "Hello, detective, are you prone to fainting?" I rolled off, gently getting up with wobbly legs. "No, it's not normal. What happened?" A dull pain throbbed in my temples as images began filtering back into my mind from before I lost consciousness. The purified person, is she alright? What happened to her? Shiki was a little bewildered. "She's fine, nothing happened. You collapsed in the shrine room. Did you hit your head?" "No, she fell over and stopped breathing. I was going to call 119, and then my breath hitched in my throat." Shiki started to appear as she doubted my sanity. "Are you sure nothing happened?" "There's no way. I saw it happen. I just talked to her with Keeper and my sister. She's fine." There was no way. I blinked slowly at Shiki as the fragmented memories of darkness bursting from a human body sharpened. Even though she turned into a monster? My hands shook. "Detective, are you all right?" I'm gonna insist. That woman fell. I'm not crazy. Even if she didn't turn into a monster, she clearly collapsed. She wasn't breathing and her heart stopped. She cracked her nose while falling down, and I saw when I rolled her onto her back. Shiki smiled nervously. "I'm sorry, detective, but are you sure you didn't hit your head?" Damn, she calling me cray-cray for real. "Sorry. It was fine." I didn't need her to believe me. We stood around for a little longer without speaking. Like a fleeting nightmare, the image of the monster became blurrier in my mind. Then my stomach growled. Chicky smiled. We went out for dinner together and started back home. She accompanied me all the way to the entrance of the inn. Night had fallen, the shoji were lit up by the lights inside the inn. As I put my hand on the door, I turned to Shiki, who still hadn't left. You aren't going home? Shiki made a pleading face. Could I stay the night with you? She tugged on my sleeve. Definitely, baby girl. I'm alright with it, but I don't know if we can trouble the innkeeper for that. We entered the inn together, perhaps an unexpected sight for the innkeeper who came to greet us. Welcome back, oh my. Shiki smiled. Good evening. With magic on her tongue, Shiki explained her request and after a few exchanging nods, received the innkeeper's approval. You're certainly welcome to stay while she's here. I'm glad you two have become friends. You remind me of Shoko and Hitoa. Thank you. Let me lead you to your room. The innkeeper led the two of us to my room and quickly adjusted it for two people before bowing out the door. Please enjoy and let me know if there are any problems. With the sound of the door closing, we were alone again. Shiki made herself comfortable on the tatami, running her hands along the ground. What's your family like? It's not very interesting. I'm an only child. My father was a very career-oriented man and my mother was his housewife. I don't think they initially planned to have children. I don't get along too well with my parents. We aren't in contact. Both pairs of grandparents died before I was born, so I never met them. There aren't many aunts or uncles involved either, so I'd say I mostly live by myself. My family was myself. What are your parents like? Shini frowned. Shiki, not Shini. Oops. My father was a businessman and the head of the shrine. She laughed. He was probably old enough to be my grandfather, so it was strange to see other people's parents so much younger than him. My mother. Shiki considered how to put things. I don't know. Shiki frowned deeper. Keeper is a lot like one, controlling people, controlling finances, and giving love to make people do things. Shiki smiled. I have a lot of dead people in my immediate family, but it doesn't really matter because only my sister matters. After lounging on the tatami for a while longer, we went to shower separately. One thing led to another and I found myself entering the hot springs with Shiki. Even though she couldn't see, as soon as I entered the water, I submerged myself up to my shoulders. Why the rush to get in the water? She walked toward the pool, dipping a foot in the water. Seeing her naked ankle, I quickly looked away, heat rising to my ears, not just from the hot springs. Oh my god, what a slut! Moving closer to me after getting into the hot springs, she let out a sigh of content. Then she cupped her hands in water and squished her palms together. A squirt of water flew out into the air. I missed, didn't I? Yes. A nervousness I hadn't noticed instantly flew away. Instead of trying again with the two-handed water gun, she directly paddled the water at me, making little waves that lapped around my arm. We definitely couldn't do this in a public bath. I retaliated, splashing water at her as well. You just declared war on me, detective. Take this. She swept her hands under the water and sent a big wave my way. I liked the sound of her laughter very much. After we finished playing, she put her arms against the stones and let her head float in the water above her back. I also leaned back against the stones, melting like jelly. Why did you become a private investigator? Why? Being able to see black strings made it a convenient choice. It gives me an edge over other people for crimes with hate-based motives. That sounds stressful. Shoko made it work. I guess I was also inspired by her to become a private investigator. Shoko's really important, huh? How did you meet her? It's a long story. I have time right now. I gave Shiki a summary of the time I was in high school. At that time, I happened to meet Shoko at a crime scene where she introduced herself as a private investigator. A bit of a loner, I was dealing with a stalker problem and had no friends to go to. I couldn't figure it out myself and the police weren't able to help, so I went to her. Snap it. Just like that, she solved the case. After that, I poked my nose into the private investigator business of hers and joined the office. I wish I could meet you from back then. I was a broody teenager. Is there a career you're chasing after? She rolled around in the water. A career? I suppose I haven't been thinking about the future these days. I wanted to be a novelist. What genre? Maybe something science fiction, science fantasy? The genre's not that important, I didn't need it to sell, so whether or not it was well defined in genre terms or marketable wasn't on my mind. I just liked writing. Did you want to self-publish? Money always finds a way. Toa said she would draw for her books. A book on the bookshelves, a colorful cover, our names together, Shiki and Toa, a work that just ours for us and no one else. We didn't really have many criteria, only that it has to be a happy ending. No matter how much the characters struggled or cried, they had to have a happy ending. We used to think about that a lot. Toa? Toa is the name of my sister. Isn't it a good name? It is. I also thought that Shiki was a good name. I don't think we'll ever make that book, though. She doesn't draw anymore either. You really love your sister. Of course. She splashed a little water at me. Rubbing her fingers together, she seemed to notice something, so I copied her action. We've been in the water for long enough that our skin began to wrinkle. Sufficiently pruny and turned to noodles, we exited the hot springs. After drying out hair with a hairdryer, we slipped into the futons that had been laid right next to each other by the innkeeper. Good night, Shiki. Good night. I didn't dream, and I slept terribly comfortably. It was warm. We headed out to the park. Just as we were about to take a seat, the priestess cut between me and Shiki. Shiki frowned at Toa, glared at me. You. What do you intend to do with my sister? What do you mean? She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. She didn't come home last night. Toa, stop. Shiki took Toa's arm. Stepping a few meters away, they had an argument about the stringless god in hushed whispers. I suddenly noticed a pair of new strings attached to Toa. One was to me, a moderate black of resentment. One was to Shiki, faint and thin. Upon Toa leaving, I mentioned one to Shiki. Who am I snitching on? Who am I snitching? I'm gonna say her. I'm gonna say sibling relationship. There's a black string between you two. Shiki gasped. I gestured toward it, but she couldn't see my hand. Blindly following my movement, she moved her hand through empty air. She frowned. You can't see that one? I can't sense it. She took her head. Shiki smiled. It's connected to me, isn't it? She frowned. Neither of us have ever been able to see the ones attached to ourselves. As long as no one else cuts our bonds, they'll be forever preserved. Shiki smiled miserably. But if one day the time of salvation comes... She trailed off with a frown. Tomorrow is a dance, isn't it? According to plans, we would go dig up Mikamito's grave on the night of the thread-cutting sword dance when everyone was occupied. She nodded before leaning close to my ear to whisper. She smiled as she spoke. Still on with the digging? Yes. Have you prepared? Of course. Will you be able to keep watch? Strings spring off the inanimate objects and come out to the people. I have somewhat of a sense for my surroundings. Anything else I'll keep my ears open for. All you need to do is dig. I felt my upper arms. I really wasn't strong at all, and considering my stamina, I wasn't sure how quickly we would be able to reach the coffin. What sort of Mikamito would we find buried? I'll look forward to seeing your results. What a strange thing to say, looking forward to digging a grave. I felt a little bit of regret that I would miss out on the ceremony dance. What's the dance like? Shiki frowned. It's a sword dance that makes the strings sing. I'm sorry that you'll miss my sister's performance. A playful smile came to her lips. I'll show you, detective. She stepped back and twirled around before starting to dance for me. Imitating holding a sword, she swept her arm to the side and flew around an imaginary stage. Her invisible blade cut through invisible strings. My heartbeat quickened. I seemed to see the air ripple and shine, sparkling with light of infinite colors. The light favored her. It allowed her movements as she cut not in a violent movement, but a smooth and delicate one. She was shining. If a world could be cruel to such a beautiful girl, then this world was wrong. After an ephemeral sequence, Shiki slowed her movements. Lowering the invisible blade, she opened her palm, as if handing it off, and stopped. She walked closer to me once more. Shiki's smile was a little somber. The choreography that I've always known is for two people. It'll become just for one from now on. I applauded her performance just for me. She seemed a bit surprised. You're beautiful. Shiki blushed. She smiled. Thank you. I'm clapping. With the sound of another pair of hands clapping also came footsteps. Shiki's beautiful smile ran away. Keeper appeared. Wonderful dance. She smiled. I'm happy to see that you two are getting along so well. Hello, Keeper. Shiki lowered her voice and gripped her hands tightly at her sides. Keeper looked at Shiki as if she was trying to express sympathy. Your sister appeared upset when I passed her earlier today. Did you two have an argument? Shiki forced a smile. It's just a normal sibling squabble. You don't need to worry about it. Keeper relaxed. I see. It would be good if you could make up before the ceremony. It wouldn't do to dampen the light of the great prayer of the stringless god, lest we were unable to reach. Shiki responded blankly. Thank you for the advice. Then Keeper turned toward me. She gave me a floaty smile. I'm glad you were able to make it for a few of our gatherings. How did you find them, and how do you have anything you'd like to ask me? They were very educational. Could I ask about the priestess? Specifically, why are they priestesses? Is it to do with the Mikami family? Keeper explained it plainly. The Mikami family is a family of the shrine. That in of itself does not define the role of priestess. of the stringless god. A priestess is someone who can see, and Mikami blood is not required. She smiled. A true priestess like our current priestess is capable of more. They can cut with their will because their birth was blessed by the stringless god. The strings that bind humanity are but fragile strings to them. Normal humans, even given the ability to see, need a special apparatus. Like what? A blessed sword. I tried to imagine what such sword would look like. Before coming to this town, I had truly believed that there could be no such thing as sharp enough to cut the strings between people, my untouchable black strings. Shiki made an annoyed smile. Don't you have to prepare, Keeper? I'm lucky to have the support of many other believers at the stringless god is in town. We have no worries about preparations at this moment. Keeper smiled politely at me. Again, I'd like to invite our guests to the ceremony tomorrow. However, if I'm interrupting your conversation, I'm happy to leave you to talk for now. I'm sure we'll have a chance to speak another time. Her eyes narrowed. For example, at the time of salvation. Shiki frowned. Keeper bowed and left. The rest of the day passed by as did the night. On the day of the theater thread-cutting sword dance, we split until evening, when we planned to meet up at the location of the ceremony. Bushes and grass surrounded the area. The night hung overhead. The townspeople had constructed a wooden stage which Toa would perform atop. It was massive, with strings of various colors tied around wooden poles and decorating the edge. The pale yellow backdrop had a large red ribbon pinned with red spider lily bouquets. Long strings hung down from the bouquets and nearly touched the floor. Isn't spider lilies that are like foreshadowing death? I think so. White flowers snaked around the wooden columns in front. At the foot of the stage was a line of decoration that alterned between yellow lanterns and more red spider lilies. Shiki stood in the clearing with me. Yeah, they are. Ooh. That is not good foreshadowing. Let's wait until more people arrive. Townspeople arrived in groups. The viewing area quickly became crowded, covered with strings, less than I would have expected from this many people. The entire town seemed to have come to watch. Soon, Toa appeared on stage. Shiki watched her sister with concern. Toa began to dance, holding a sword in her hand. The way the blade glinted in the stage lightning made me think that it must have been real. Time to go, detective. Moving away from the light, we entered darkness as we arrived at the cemetery. As usual, we ignored the general tombstones and entered the Mikami section, stopping before the grave that we were soon to desecrate. Shiki passed me a shovel and a pair of work gloves. She grinned. Time to dig, detective. The grin disappeared, and she became determined. Mikami Itoha is waiting. I put on the gloves, propping up the shovel with my foot. After flexing my hands thrice under the rough cloth, I grabbed the shovel handle. Dead, I hope. Shiki stood by patiently. Thunk. With a thrust, I stabbed the shovel head into the grave plot. Not an expert at digging, I used my foot to push against the shovel and fling a sizable chunk of dirt to the side. I dug and dug and dug. Bit by bit, a pile of dirt began to accumulate next to Mikami Itoha's grave, spilling over to the next person's plot. My arms grew sore, as did my back. What was the correct way to dig? I really had no clue, but I didn't let go of the shovel. Finally, I hit the coffin. In fact, the grave was relatively shallow, but I still had to uncover the rest of its length. I kept digging and digging. How long had I dug? I felt as if I had shoveled for hours. Even the moon had seemingly moved. How much was left? The metal of the shovel made a squeal as it scraped against the coffin. At this point, I had stepped into the hole I created in the ground, the majority of the narrow coffin's length revealed beneath the dirt. If I took a particularly large stride, I could step out directly back to Shiki. As my chest throbbed and my arms wobbled, simply holding the shovel, I doubted I could manage such a stride at the moment. Shiki passed me a bottle of water and I took a sip, the cool liquid bringing me relief to my throat. Wiping away my rapidly cooling sweat, I shoveled away the last of the dirt. I dropped the shovel outside of the pit and grabbed the lid of the coffin. With my hands unsteady, numb from holding the shovel for so long, I grasped at the lid a number of times before getting a decent hold on it. Then I pulled. With so much force that I flung myself backward into the dirt, I removed the lid that soon fell from my hands. Shiki was curious. What's inside? Nothing. There's nothing inside. Shiki frowned. All I could see was an empty coffin. Vertigo overcame me as I told myself to take deep breaths. Deep breaths, deep breaths. The photo in my pocket burned. Shiki seemed upset. I tried to get out of the pit, but my body felt like limbs were lead. As I put my hands on the slightly higher ground, I couldn't lift myself up enough to climb. Help me out. Shiki took my hands and slowly dragged me out. My body was going to rip apart. So she's not inside. Shiki looked mad. Mikami Itoha is missing. Shiki was insistent. We definitely buried her. I just wanted to dig up her corpse and verify. That means she either got up and walked away herself or someone else made off with the body, but why? Realization dawned on Shiki. Salvation. What? Salvation. Mikame Itoha died, but she doesn't need to be dead. She's the Holy Maiden. Was that fear in her voice? Holy shit! What might you be doing here? Shiki Brown's raised at the voice. Cooper's Clear's voice cut through our conversation. We turned in unison to find her behind us. The woman surrounded by monsters. Monsters, 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 monsters. They were so close that I could see the broken flesh where the darkness burst out from limp human bodies. Monsters. Keeper was surrounded by monsters, but her expression was the same as usual. I grabbed my chest, feeling the racing of my heart, trying to breathe and calm myself. I dug my fingers into my scars. Priestess. A distorted voice shrieked, sending me rushing to cover my ears. Shiki looked on defiantly. I have nothing to say. Did Shiki not see that these were monsters either? Even if her eyes were unable to perceive, shouldn't the noise of these creatures have alerted her? We had to run away. Grabbing her hand, I tried to lead Shiki away, only to find the ground disappeared beneath my feet as a force rammed me from the back. Shiki gasped. I fell into the ditch I dug, crashing against the coffin, causing dirt to fall atop my shoulders. The moon hung over me in the night sky. You're kinda slow, woman, aren't you? Everything's dripping. The distortion of its voice hurt my ears. I couldn't hear what the monster was saying, if it was saying human words. Oh, fuck. My head slammed against the ground. The monster had picked up the shovel and swung it at me. The impact gave me a clarity for just a second. Ah! Stumbling to get up, I frantically moved my hands to regain balance. The shovel did not wait. Stop. Seeing the metal of the shovel embed onto my torso, I could help but feel that it was rather mundane for a monster to do. Shiki is shrieking. I was going to die, wasn't I? Watching as the shovel tore out of my body, sending a spray of red, mixing with the dark of dirt, I met my eyes with the monster. If that thing could be considered an eye. Everything hurt. It was looking at my left eye. Was that the sound of darkness or my life escaping from the seams of my ragdoll body? I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't bear to look down at myself. Had I been rent apart? I was scared. Strings weren't meant to be read like this. They weren't meant to come out of a human body. Sticky. Not my body. Not again. Why? Stop. I was dead. Splat. Fuck. I got another dead end. But we learned a lot. I died. But that's a very cool story. I really did enjoy it. I think I'll do the rest on my own. To see the other endings, unless you guys are interested, but this took a while. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I got the achievement for Dead End 3. And I'm dead. I died at the cemetery. A monster killed me with a fucking shovel. Can you believe that? I think that's very rude and I deserved a cooler death. I put myself on the line. I deserved a cooler death. But as you can probably see, it has been 3 hours of stream, and God knows I usually don't do this long. I did this long because today's a Friday and I could stream longer, and that was the plan for Slay the Princess. So hopefully, when Slay the Princess releases, I will also stream for a long periodically time. Because that game surely deserves it, and I can't wait to play it. We will find someone to raid now. But as I said, I am not sure if I can play Slay the Princess on the launch day anymore because... Oh, that is winter. I'm so sorry. We're not in winter yet. Halloweeny. Because they moved the launch day, I'm not sure if I can stream on launch day, which is Monday, which is unfortunate, but maybe, Elder, you can experience the game on your own for the first time. And listen. That's so little. But yes, that is the plan for now. Let me remind you all that for next week, I don't have a schedule yet because I have things going on at work. We have a client coming in and we are going to have to spend time with said client, so I will not be having a schedule. So if you'd like to know when I can stream or any updates, please follow me on Twitter, but mostly Discord. I post most of my updates on Discord, so please, if you'd like to keep updated with stream schedules and everything else, do join the Discord. Now, who are we going to raid? Ooh, okay. We are going to raid Olwick, and they're playing Medan, which is a game that I've been wanting to play for a very long time, and I actually haven't seen the whole story, so I'm actually interested how this game goes. They're playing it with someone because there is kind of a, not exactly co-op in this game, but it can be a multiplayer game where multiple characters choose different things and everything, so surely this should be fun. New stream message. Yes, I finally remembered to change the stream message. So let's give some love to Olwick. I love you all so much. Please keep yourself hydrated. I will also hydrate a little bit. My teeth and my lips are hurting from talking so much, so I will be taking a deserved break right now. But have a great rest of your night and a great weekend, everyone. I love you so, so much. Elder, thank you for the hydrate, and stay well and stay safe. I love you. Mwah.